playing as Tathagata in Marvel, I suppressed Thanos for 500 years. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 34 The Chitauri army has arrived and the Earth is in danger. Chapter 34 The Chitauri army has arrived, Earth is in danger. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 34 The Chitauri army has arrived, Earth is in danger. Chen Haitian stared at the azure pillar of light in the distance, stunned. That must have been created by the Mandarin using the Tesseract. Stark's prediction was correct. But what is he planning to do with this pillar of light? Chen Haitian didn't understand. But he felt a surge of unease, a sense that the pillar of light was causing serious trouble. Whatever he's planning, it won't be good. Chen Haitian's face was filled with anxiety. Now they could only hope that Stark could rush over and stop the Mandarin's actions in time. Right now, Chen Haitian and Tony still believed the Pillar of Light was the Mandarin's own creation. They didn't know that the Mandarin was being controlled by Loki, and that he was responsible for all this. Hong Kong Temple. The Ancient One, accompanied by many of his disciples, stood on the upper floor, watching the scene in the distance. A look of disbelief crossed his face. How could it appear in Hong Kong? Shouldn't it appear in New York? Ancient One's mind was in turmoil. He'd seen this happen before in the Time Stone. But it happened in New York, so why was it in Hong Kong now? What the hell is going on? Why has it changed so drastically? Ancient One felt uneasy. For the first time, he felt as if everything was slipping out of his control. But how could this be possible? He was Earth's supreme sorcerer, its protector. Ancient One's mind was a little unsettled. This was a very troublesome situation for a supreme sorcerer. An unstable mind made him vulnerable to the dark side's influence. But thankfully, he had lived as a supreme sorcerer for many years. He quickly regained his composure. Let's not think about this for now. The Hong Kong Temple's in danger. We must protect it. Otherwise, if it's destroyed, creatures from the dark dimension will invade Earth, and that will cause even greater trouble, Ancient One thought to himself. Lin Feng's residence. Lin Feng's lips curled up into a smile. Finally, it's about to begin, and the story he'd written about Sun Wukong wreaking havoc in heaven officially entered its climax. Boom boom boom, the sky, struck by the azure beam of light, swirled faster and faster, lightning flashing continuously. Finally, a hole resembling a black hole formed. The aura of the universe continuously emanated from the hole. Ha 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 ha! On the building, Loki laughed heartily, his heart filled with excitement and elation. It's finally open. Thor, and that Sun Wukong, you all wait. I'm going to show you how powerful I am. Chitauri army, descend. Conquer this planet for me. Loki arrogantly extended his hand. A flash of light green light flashed across him. His suit and trousers transformed back into Asgardian attire, and he donned a golden crown resembling deer antlers. In this moment of glory, he must appear in the most majestic manner. Meanwhile, on the other side of the hole, in the universe, an immense space battleship quietly floated. Beside it lay a number of spaceships, smaller but not quite as large. They seemed to be waiting for something. After the hole appeared, lights across the spaceships suddenly lit up, and then countless aliens, in their craft, flew towards the hole. They were hideous, their voices emitting strange cries. But their excitement and enthusiasm were palpable. Boom, 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 tens of thousands of alien creatures, piloting craft, flew out of the hole and headed towards the ground below. Simultaneously, mechanical worms, resembling worms, also flew out of the hole. They were enormous, ferocious, terrifying, and technologically advanced. As soon as they appeared, they recklessly attacked the ground below. Energy beams blasted into the ground or buildings, instantly creating a crater. This demonstrated the power of these beams. Boom, boom, boom. In less than 30 seconds, a vast number of Chitauri soldiers, piloting their craft, spread out in all directions and launched their attack. Smoke billowed, and the flames of war spread rapidly. On the ground, humans fled like ants, frantically. Only then did they finally understand what the beam of light was all about. Run. 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 Alien invasion. Aliens invasion. Damn aliens. Come on. Your grandpa isn't afraid of you. Help. Help. Someone save me. Damn aliens. Just wait. Sun Wukong will appear and destroy you, mom, woo, woo, woo. For a moment, shouting, cursing, crying, and explosions filled the air. But many people firmly believed that Sun Wukong would come, because it was Sun Wukong who had appeared and destroyed the alien steel giant that had appeared. Therefore, Sun Wukong would definitely come. People fled in panic, while aliens chased them in flying vehicles, screaming and firing beams at the fleeing humans below, as if amusing themselves. But the most terrifying thing was the mechanical worms. 7 or 8 of them had already descended. Not only could they fire downward beams, but their bodies could also serve as weapons. As they flew past buildings, their solid bodies scratched them, sending them collapsing to the ground. Boom 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 echoed, stirring up clouds of dust. People could only flee frantically on the ground. The scene was a scene of civilization being crushed. Before the alien civilization, Earth's humanity was like ants. In a short period of time, the Chitauri army had unleashed countless soldiers, their presence filling the sky. The city was gradually being destroyed. Tony rushed to the location where the space tunnel had been opened. Seeing the device clearly before him, Tony's pupils constricted, and he took a deep breath. Space device? Tony didn't know why the Mandarin had used the Tesseract to create a space tunnel to allow alien civilizations to attack Earth. But he wasn't thinking about that right now. He wanted to disable the device to prevent further alien attacks. Boom, but just then, a voice came from behind him. Jarvis immediately took control of the suit and carried Tony into the air. Bang! A green beam of light struck where Tony had just stood. Tony's face darkened. If he had been a step slower, he would have been caught in a sneak attack. And the attacker from below was none other than the Mandarin. Mandarin, do you know what you're doing? Tony asked gravely. I know, the Mandarin said. Then you're absolutely mad, allowing aliens to attack Earth. Shut down this device? Tony couldn't comprehend the Mandarin's idea. Impossible, then there's no room for negotiation. Tony said no more, swooping down to engage the Mandarin once again. Boom boom boom, just then, fighter jets from the Air Force Station in Hong Kong City arrived. The army hadn't arrived so quickly. The army's reaction and response were undoubtedly swift, but no matter how swift, they couldn't outpace the destruction. As the pilots and soldiers reached Hong Kong, they were stunned by the scene on the ground. Smoke and dust billowed, a scene of apocalypse. They quickly engaged in battle, 7 fighter planes attacking the flying aliens, sending them tumbling down like rain. But the aliens were simply too numerous. And they seemed incapable of fear. Even facing the fighter planes, they swarmed forward, one after another. The 7 fighter planes barely held out for long before they were destroyed one after another. Chapter 35 The battle was fierce. Chapter 35 The battle is fierce. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 35 The battle is fierce. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's face was filled with shock. Then, he gritted his teeth. Don't these aliens have any sense of fear? They're attacking the fighter planes one after another, without even trying to evade them. Furthermore, those giant mechanical worms haven't even attacked the fighter planes yet. If they did, the fighter planes would have had virtually no chance of fighting back. Chen Haitian was terribly anxious. This was a crushing defeat by civilization, and their civilization wasn't high enough to resist. Chen Haitian looked toward the black hole. He saw aliens still pouring out of it, flying in all directions. Why hasn't Tony shut that thing down yet? Is he in trouble? Chen Haitian thought, convinced that this must be the case. The Mandarin must be guarding the device, and Tony would have to confront him if he went over. And it seemed he had never fought the Mandarin before. Damn it, Chen Haitian was distraught. But there was nothing he could do. In this situation, he couldn't even get over there, so he couldn't help at all. You bunch of alien beasts, wait until Sun Wukong or that Tathagata Buda comes over and shows you how powerful we are, Chen Haitian thought to himself. Ding ling ling ding ling ling, but just then, a rapid phone ring rang out, as if foreshadowing something was about to happen. Chen Haitian took out his phone and answered it. Hello, this is Chen Haitian, Director. A hammer just flew over and flew directly into Thor's hands, and then he transformed. The subordinate's surprised voice came from the phone. Hammer? Transformed? Chen Haitian was stunned when he heard this. What the hell is going on? Yet, he just suddenly changed his clothes, and he looks quite handsome. And his hairstyle changed too. Chen Haitian. Suddenly, Chen Haitian thought of what Thor said during the interrogation. He was a prince of Asgard, banished to Earth by the god Odin for his misdeeds. His hammer had also arrived, and he had to find it and restore his divine power. Chen Haitian seemed to understand something. But now was not the time to dwell on such thoughts. Since Thor is the son of the god Odin, he must also have divine power. Let's get him to help. With this thought, Chen Haitian immediately said, "Send Thor to Xiangjiang City to help." Xiangjiang, the subordinate asked curiously. "Director, what's the situation in Xiangjiang now? Why do I feel like there's so much noise over there? It's hard to explain," Chen Haitian urged. "Don't ask so many questions. Hurry and arrange a plane to bring Thor here." "Yes," the subordinate, realizing the urgency of the situation, stopped asking further questions. But the next second, he spoke again. This time, however, he seemed surprised, his voice trembling. "Director, there's no need to arrange a plane. Thor asked me which direction Xiangjiang City is." Then he spun the hammer a few times, threw it, and flew away with it like a parabola. Chen Haitian was stunned. He hadn't expected Thor to do something like this. But he didn't think much about it. "Okay, I got it," he hung up. Chen Haitian thought to himself, Thor is on his way, and having an extraordinary person to help is always a good thing. But I wonder how strong Thor is. How does he compare to Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda? Chen Haitian pondered. However, before he could think about it, a loud noise came from outside. "Open the door. Let us in, help. Open the door, hurry, hurry. The aliens are right behind us, please. Aren't you from the government? Open the door and let us in." Hearing the voices, Chen Haitian turned and saw a large crowd of citizens outside the iron gate. Young and old, some with children. They were panicked, some even crying, trying to get inside for shelter. Without a second thought, Chen Haitian shouted, "What are you doing? Open the door. Let them in." Upon hearing the order, the guards hurriedly opened the iron gate. Citizens rushed in like a flood of monsters behind them. And indeed, they were. Chen Haitian looked up and saw a large number of aliens flying in spacecraft. "Damn it," Chen Haitian shouted, "everyone. Fight the aliens and protect the citizens." Yes, Chen Haitian led the Chinese soldiers to fight the aliens. However, their weapons were no match. The bullets had no effect on the aliens and their spacecraft. Even a bazooka could only take out one alien at best. Furthermore, bazookas are slow to reload, unlike the alien aircraft, which can rapidly fire beams. So, from the moment they engaged, Chen Haitian and his companions were at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, over the Pacific Ocean, a massive object resembling an aircraft carrier was taking flight. It was none other than the aerospace carrier developed by the United States. Captain America's Steve Rogers stood at the railing, gazing into the distance. His expression was slightly melancholic, his thoughts unsettled. For him, awakening after decades of slumber, only places like the military felt familiar. However, the sight of a heavy-duty carrier soaring through the sky now felt familiar yet both shocking and unfamiliar. Just then, Nick approached with a tablet and announced, "We have at most 20 minutes to reach Xiangjiang City, China." He then held out a high-tech electronic panel and said, "Take a look. This is the current situation in Xiangjiang City." Captain America took the panel. Looking at the devastated city and the aliens flying through the sky, attacking the ground, Captain America's pupils shrank and he gasped. "Are these aliens?" Captain America was incredulous, his heart pounding. "Yes," Nick nodded. He'd been surprised to learn of this. He'd never imagined the Mandarin's purpose in stealing the Tesseract was to enable aliens to attack Earth. Damn it. Nick had dealt with aliens before, so the sight of them wasn't surprising. Captain America frowned, pondered for a moment, and said, "Can this helicarrier get any faster? We must rush to the rescue. They need our help." Nick nodded in agreement. "However," he added, "our superiors have ordered us to join the battle as needed. If anything goes wrong, we must evacuate immediately. After all, this concerns our national security, and we must carefully consider this matter. And even if we want to help, we have to wait for China to ask for our help. We have to give something in return." Captain America frowned, but said nothing more. Despite his resentment, he also had the good sense to know that Nick Fury was right. The aerospace carrier soared through the sky, approaching Hong Kong City. He could even see the wormhole, its opening growing ever larger. A steady stream of aliens flew out of the wormhole, like locusts devouring a field. Bang! Tony was struck by a green beam, sent flying backward, breaking a streetlight. Pain washed over him, weakness, and panic. He struggled to stand. But then Jarvis' voice rang out, "Sir, your palladium poisoning is worsening. Please stop fighting immediately and seek treatment. If you continue like this, you could be in danger of your life." Tony stood up, acting as if he hadn't heard him. Meanwhile, the Mandarin approached, his arms folded, a smile on his face. 10 rings graced his fingers. Chapter 36, Beating the Hole. Chapter 36, Beating Mandarin 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 36, Beating Mandarin. Stark, you're not in the right condition, the Mandarin laughed. After the battle, he realized that something was wrong with Tony. However, it had nothing to do with him. He looked at the distant sky again and said, "Do you see the current situation? At this rate, the alien army will occupy the entire Earth within 2 days. By then, I will be the biggest hero. And you won't see that time." The Mandarin grinned. He gathered energy in his hands and was about to attack Tony. He wanted to kill Tony here. Tony's face was pale and very weak. Seeing this scene, his face changed even more. He wanted to dodge, but his body had no strength. "Damn it," Tony said angrily. But at this moment, a figure flew over at high speed and hit the Mandarin with a bang, triggering a green magic shield. The Mandarin flew backwards. Tony stared in disbelief at the sudden scene. The newcomer was a man draped in a red cape and a resemblance to armor. It was Thor. After the Tathagata Buddha freed him from his restraints, he regained his divine power and successfully summoned Mjolnir. After knocking the Mandarin away, Thor turned to look at Tony. He didn't know Tony, but simply saw what was happening and offered his assistance. But now wasn't the time to dwell on this. He had come to Xiangjiang City to help, at Chen Haitian's request. "Hey, can you shut down that thing?" Thor pointed at the azure beam of light. Tony looked in the direction he pointed, understanding what he meant, and said, "I can give it a try." "Okay," Thor said. "You shut it down and prevent too many aliens from entering Earth. I'll deal with this guy." With that, he rushed towards the Mandarin. Tony watched. He didn't recognize the man. But judging by the current situation, he wasn't an enemy. Tony didn't think twice. While the other party was holding the Mandarin hostage, he had to shut down the tunnel. Gritting his teeth, he forced his palladium-corroded body to fly, manipulating his Iron Man suit into flight towards the tunnel. Landing in front of the tunnel, Tony lost his balance and fell to the ground. Jarvis's voice rang out again, "Sir, your body has been severely corroded by the palladium. Please leave the battlefield immediately and seek medical attention." Tony, bracing himself with his hands, forced himself to stand, forcing a smile. "Jarvis, if I leave now, who'll shut down the tunnel? With more and more aliens attacking Earth, how long can Earth hold out?" The AI, Jarvis, fell silent. Tony said nothing more. He glanced at the control panel, his hands working on the keyboard, attempting to shut down the tunnel. Bang! Thor's hammer smashed into the Mandarin, lightning flashing. Even with his magical shield, the Mandarin was wounded by Thor's overwhelming force. He spat out a mouthful of blood, flew backward, and crashed into the rubble. Thor crushed the Mandarin. No matter how powerful the Mandarin's magic was, it was no match for Thor's divine strength. He was Odin's son. Bang! The Mandarin used his magic to shake the surrounding rocks aside. He was in a state of disarray, panting, his clothes tattered, his hair tangled in curls from the lightning, and blood drenched his mouth. He roared in anger, "You're courting death. The alien army is attacking Earth. You dare to attack me? You won't survive tomorrow." The Mandarin didn't know who the other man was, but he knew they were doomed. Thor frowned, swung his hammer, and was about to charge again. But just then, he saw an alien flying towards him in a spacecraft, and behind it sat a familiar figure. Loki. Thor's pupils shrank, his heart leaping. He was surprised to see Loki on Earth. Why is Loki here? Suddenly, a possibility occurred to Thor. Could it be that Loki did all this? The thought suddenly filled him with disbelief. Where did Loki get such a massive army? But then, another thought struck him, and his face suddenly changed, his heart pounding. He quickly berated Loki. "Loki, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" Loki heard someone calling him and looked down. It was Thor on the ground. And how had he regained his divine power? Loki was stunned for a moment. Then, his lips curled up, and he let the thought go. Even with his divine power restored, what good could it do? Could he handle an army of Chitauri? With this in mind, Loki ordered the Chitauri soldier to fly over in a flying vehicle, which then landed above Thor. From the aircraft, Loki gazed down at Thor from above. He was dressed in regal attire and sported a golden crown, making him look like a king. He said, "Thor, it's been a long time, Loki, did you do all this? What do you want, what do you want?" Loki smiled. "Of course, I want to become the ruler of Earth. Oh, and I want to kill you and that monkey king, you're crazy." Thor heard this and urged him hastily, "Stop right now and return to Asgard with me to face your punishment, or you'll regret it." "Regret? Why should I regret it? Earth isn't as simple as you think. If you want to become the ruler of Earth, you'll inevitably anger those people. They're not something you, nor these alien armies, can resist." Thor was referring to Monkey King and Tathagata Buda. If they took action, these alien armies, and Loki, would be useless. "Ho ha ho ha," Loki roared with laughter, as if he'd heard something funny. "Thor, this isn't like you. How come after Odin imprisoned your powers and banished you to this planet, you've become so timid?" "Ha ha ha, I've already inquired about the strength of Sun Wukong and the others. They're not that strong. If they dare show up, my Chitauri army will destroy them." Loki, Thor, hearing the other person addressing his father by name, shouted, "Watch your words. He's your father, he's not my father." But Loki's expression suddenly changed, becoming furious. Even Thor was stunned by these words. He hadn't expected Loki's reaction to be so strong. Seeing Thor's stunned expression, Loki realized he had lost his composure. He snorted coldly, his earlier smug demeanor restored. "Thor, I will soon be the master of this planet. No one, not even you, can stop me. If that Sun Wukong dares to show up, I will kill him. Even if he gets scared and hides, I will find him and kill him." With that, he refused to waste any more time with Thor. He ordered the alien soldiers to fly away in their aircraft. "Loki! Loki!" Thor shouted, distraught as he watched Loki fly away. He wanted to call Loki back, to take him back to Asgard before he could provoke those people. But Loki refused to speak to him. Chapter 37 Tony is in danger. Chapter 37, Tony is in danger, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 37, Tony is in danger. Damn it, where did Loki hear this? Thor was distraught. He actually said that Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda were not powerful. Isn't this nonsense? How could they not be powerful? He swung his hammer and was about to chase Loki, stop his foolish behavior, and bring him back to Asgard. Bang! But suddenly, at this moment, a green light shot out and hit him directly in the back, knocking him away. Bang! It hit a parked car on the side of the road, directly knocking it 2 or 3 meters. Thor's back hurt, but he was not seriously injured. He was Odin's son, and now that he had regained his divine power, his physical strength was naturally formidable. This level of attack was not enough to hurt him. Thor stood up from the ground and looked at the Mandarin who had attacked him. He looked displeased. "Looks like we have to finish him off first." Thor didn't hesitate any longer, charging at the Mandarin. Seeing Thor charging, the Mandarin, without a second thought, roared and charged forward. He'd overheard Thor and Loki's conversation, and at first he'd been surprised. From their conversation, it seemed Thor and Loki were brothers, but it seemed Loki wanted to kill Thor. And as a slave, how could he not fulfill his master's wish? Bang! But as they engaged, Thor's hammer struck, evoking a green shield. The Mandarin spat out blood again, flew backward, and crashed into a shop. But in an instant, he burst out again. Thor showed no mercy, continuing the fight. On Tony's side. Boom boom boom, the space tunnel device continued to rumble, showing no sign of shutting down. Tony kept fiddling with the control panel, but to no avail. He couldn't find a shutdown program, as if it were a one-way system with no shutdown procedure. And indeed, it was. Because, in a rush, the Mandarin had built a neutered version from the start. Besides, he hadn't considered shutting down the device. Tony had tried other methods, like firing energy beams at the Tesseract, the space-powered energy source. But it was useless. The beam struck the Tesseract and bounced back, striking him. The clacking of keyboards continued. Tony kept trying, but still to no avail. Finally, Tony clenched his fists and smashed the console. Bang! He finally gave up. "Damn it!" Tony exclaimed angrily. His palladium poisoning was worsening, and a black tinge could clearly be seen below his neck. Furthermore, he felt increasingly weak and dizzy. In his emotional turmoil, he couldn't even stand, and he stumbled backward, falling to the ground. Then, Thor flew in. He dispatched the Mandarin. Thor landed on the ground, and seeing Tony slumped, his heart skipped a beat. Although he had anticipated the outcome, he still asked, unwilling to give up, "Can't this beam of light be turned off?" Tony shook his head. Thor's face darkened. He turned to look at the space tunnel device. After a moment's hesitation, he gritted his teeth and rushed forward, raising his hammer and smashing it against the tesseract. With a resounding bang, a blue recoil force, mingled with lightning, struck him, sending him flying. Bang! Thor slammed to the ground. A sharp pain shot through his chest, as if struck by a giant's fist. Damn it! He stood up, about to think of another solution. Suddenly, he was targeted by aliens, and a large number of them attacked him. His pupils constricted. But there was nothing he could do but fight on. Bang! 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 Explosions echoed everywhere, and the situation became even worse than before. Chen Haitian led the others in a desperate struggle against the Chitauri soldiers, but due to the disparity in weaponry and numbers, they were completely at a disadvantage. "Director, we're almost collapsing," the subordinate shouted anxiously. "Even if we can't, we have to hold on," Chen Haitian shouted as he fired. "The Xiangjiang City army has been dispatched, and Stark has gone to shut down that beam. If he shuts it down and cuts off the alien army's transportation, everything will be much better." Chen Haitian's words were completely useless encouragement. Given the current situation, even if the beam was shut down, countless alien soldiers had already descended on Earth, which would still be a huge problem. The others knew this, but at this point, it was difficult to say anything. But then, a red figure flew towards them from a direction where no alien soldiers had been seen. With a bang, as if it hadn't braked, it fell directly to the ground and slid several meters. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's heart skipped a beat. "Stark! What's going on?" Without time to think, he rushed forward, struggling to turn Tony over, and asked, "Stark, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing," Tony said weakly. Then he said, "Jarvis, open the mech." Yes, with a hum of mechanical whirring, the suit opened. Tony appeared before Chen Haitian. But upon seeing Tony's condition, Chen Haitian's pupils constricted, startled. "What's wrong with you?" Tony's face was pale, his eyes dark, and he looked incredibly weak. Strangest of all, the veins in his neck were completely black. Tony didn't answer Chen Haitian's question, but instead spoke about the space tunnel device. "I can't shut it down. I can't help you." "What?" Chen Haitian's face fell. If it couldn't be shut down, it meant an endless stream of alien armies would attack Earth. Chen Haitian found it hard to accept. He wanted to say, "Aren't you a super genius? How could you not shut it down?" But seeing Tony's expression, he swallowed the words back. Tony must have tried his best to look like this. As soon as Tony finished speaking, his eyes closed, his head tilted, and he fainted. Startled, Chen Haitian shouted, "Hurry! Help! Carry him to safety!" Boom! 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 Loki sat atop his flying vehicle, surveying the battlefield like a king. But even with this situation, he was thinking, "Thor, you'll never be able to defeat me. Once I become the master of this planet, my next plan is to retake Asgard. And father, just wait and see. After retaking Asgard, I'll wage war on Jotunheim and completely destroy it." Loki's lips curled up. Suddenly, he noticed that Earth's humans were fighting fiercely in a certain place. And he saw a familiar face. "It's him," Loki said, catching sight of Chen Haitian. Earlier, when he had sent 18 destroyers to Earth to kill Thor, Chen Haitian had appeared with his soldiers, attacking the destroyers. Through the destroyer's vision, he saw Chen Haitian. "He must be a Chinese official," Loki said with a smile. An idea struck him. Immediately, he ordered the Zeta soldiers to fly over in aircraft. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 38 The Shadow of Tathagata Buddha appears. Chapter 38 The Apparition of Tathagata Buddha appears. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 38 The Apparition of Tathagata Buddha appears. Boom, boom, boom. Chen Haitian had just finished settling Tony down and walked out. Tony was in dire condition and needed immediate medical attention or he would die. But in his current situation, Not only was he unable to get to the hospital, but even if he did, it would be useless. Aliens were attacking everywhere. Damn it, Chen Haitian gritted his teeth. Director, we're running out of ammunition. Just then, a subordinate's cry rang out. Chen Haitian looked over and witnessed a scene he would never forget. With a bang, a beam of light struck the soldier's side, its powerful impact sending several nearby soldiers flying. One of the soldiers fell to the ground in front of Chen Haitian with a thud. His face and back were burned black, his eyes still open, his eyes wide open in death. Chen Haitian was stunned for a moment, then a wave of heartbreaking grief washed over him. He screamed in rage, his emotions uncontrollable. He raised his assault rifle and began to fire at the Chitauri soldiers in the sky, venting his fury. Come on. You alien beasts. Come on, but it was of little use, the bullets were barely effective against the Chitauri soldiers. Just then, Loki flew over. He took in the situation below, a look of contempt on his face. With a wave of his hand, he blocked all the bullets. He ordered the surrounding Chitauri soldiers to halt their attacks and not interfere with his show-off. Then, he addressed Chen Haitian, you really only know how to put up a useless resistance. With weapons like this, can you really defeat a Chitauri army? Loki's words were a mocking one. If such weapons could defeat a Chitauri army, then they wouldn't be able to conquer planets and seize the Infinity Stones across the universe. Chen Haitian's fury calmed slightly at this. He stared at Loki and asked in a deep voice, who are you? He didn't know Loki, nor did he know that this alien invasion was actually caused by Loki. Me. Loki smiled, stood up, and opened his arms. I will soon be the master of this planet. He lowered his head and pointed his mind scepter at Chen Haitian, saying, and you will all be my slaves. Put down your weapons and submit to me. Otherwise, you will die, not even slaves. You're dreaming, Chen Haitian shouted. He now understood that the man before him was the mastermind behind all this. The Mandarin was merely a subordinate. You're courting death, Loki glared, his brow furious, his face etched with displeasure. A weak, lowly being dared to contradict him. He immediately used his scepter to launch a beam of light attack, which, with a bang, shot towards Chen Haitian. Chen Haitian's pupils shrank, his face darkening. As a mere human, he couldn't possibly dodge such an attack. Captain, Captain, the surviving soldiers shouted in shock at Chen Haitian. They tried to advance, but it was too late. Bang, an invisible force spread out in all directions. Soldiers who tried to charge were sent flying, falling to the ground. A cloud of blue smoke filled the air around Chen Haitian. Seeing this, Loki sneered, you fool. You dare to talk back to a god. He believed Chen Haitian was doomed. After all, no human on Earth could survive such an attack. He turned his gaze to the remaining soldiers and said coldly, see? This is the fate of not submitting to me? Do you want to live or die? Hearing this, the remaining soldiers snapped out of their grief. With a determined look, they stared at Loki, their disregard for life and death. The meaning was self-evident. Seeing this reaction, Loki chuckled in anger. All right, since you want to die, then I'll grant your wish. He was about to order the Chitauri soldiers to continue their attack, but suddenly, at that moment, bursts of Buddhist chanting echoed from the heavens and earth, as if countless people were chanting something ethereal and mysterious. Loki was stunned. What was that sound? Then, he seemed to see something, and his face suddenly changed with shock. Chen Haitian, shrouded in blue smoke, suddenly emitted rays of golden light, dispersing the blue smoke and revealing what lay within. Chen Haitian was unharmed, a golden shield protecting him. This golden shield, shimmering with golden light, looked holy and mysterious. Compared to the Mandarin's green shield, it was like the difference between a luxury car and a tractor. What is that? Loki came to his senses, his brows furrowed, his eyes filled with confusion. He had not expected this. The surviving soldiers around him were also stunned. What was going on? Could the director also be a transcendent? Chen Haitian was at the center of the shield. What is this? Honestly, he was completely stunned, unable to believe the bizarre scene before him. Just now, Loki had attacked him, and suddenly, this had happened. He hadn't even reacted. Then, he saw something floating above him. Suddenly, his heart trembled, and realization flashed in his eyes. I remember. The Tathagata Buddha once said that Earth would soon face a crisis, and then he gave me a scroll, saying it would protect the area. This is the scroll. Chen Haitian looked at it excitedly. Ever since arriving in Xiangjiang City, He'd been busy planning the capture of the Mandarin, and now with the alien invasion, he'd forgotten about it. If Loki hadn't caused the scroll to automatically fly out to protect him, he wouldn't have even remembered he was carrying the scroll given by the Tathagata Buddha. "It's safe now," Chen Haitian exclaimed excitedly. Unlike Chen Haitian, Loki had no idea what this golden shield was. But at that moment, the scroll suddenly burst into flames. Chen Haitian's eyes widened, his heart lurching as his excitement abruptly ended. Could it be? Was the sutra about to end? But the next second, a swastika emerged from the burning scroll, growing ever larger. Within seconds, it covered the entire sky of Xiangjiang City. A massive, transparent golden shield, like a golden bowl, enveloped Xiangjiang City. The Chitauri soldiers, unprepared to invade the city, collided with the shield, resulting in the destruction of their aircraft and the deaths of all on board. Explosions erupted everywhere. Simultaneously, a colossal Buddha figure appeared. His immense form stood guard over the golden shield. Buddhist chants echoed throughout the heavens and earth, and above the Buddha's shadow, mirage-like scenes unfolded. It seemed as if the earth was in ancient times, with countless ancient people kneeling in reverent worship. The scent of incense emanated from them, gathering in the sky. But it seems that there are other scenes that have not been revealed. But even so, this scene is still shocking. Chapter 39 Everyone is shocked. Chapter 39 Everyone was shocked. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 39 Everyone was shocked. The shadow of Tathagata Buddha, with his hands clasped together, had a compassionate look. It was exactly the same as the Tathagata Buddha played by Lin Feng before. Amitabha. Then, the shadow of Tathagata Buddha chanted a Buddhist name. The grand and solemn voice spread in all directions. At this moment, it seemed that there was only this one voice left in the world. The people who were fleeing stopped and stared at the shadow of Tathagata Buddha in amazement. Some even had tears on their faces, frozen in tears. It took them a long while to come back to their senses. "Oh my God, what is that? So shocking." "Yes, it looks like a monk. Could it be, like Sun Wukong, a figure from our ancient times? Such a magical scene, it must be, shh. That's too shocking. Is he here to save us?" "Yes. Since he's appeared, he must be here to save us." "Great. Great, but why didn't Sun Wukong show up? I think he's busy with something." There was a flurry of discussion. Ancient One, upon seeing the shadow of the Tathagata Buddha, froze in his tracks. He couldn't believe his eyes, he could actually witness such a scene. Ancient One was the supreme mage, a man of great experience. Even he had such a reaction, which only showed how incredible the appearance of the Tathagata Buddha's shadow was. However, this isn't a real person, it must have been created by some profound power. But he must also be a figure from ancient times, like Sun Wukong, now awakened, said Ancient One. He saw it, but he didn't know what to call this ability to manifest shadows. He sensed it wasn't magic, but an inexplicable, ancient, and time-honored ability. This power was truly incredible. So powerful that it made her mind uneasy. He also sensed that the mirage-like scene above the shadow must have occurred in ancient times, and that much of this scene had yet to be revealed. This was his intuition as Earth's supreme sorcerer. That Lin Feng is right. Figures from the ancient times will awaken one after another. First it was Sun Wukong, and now it's this person. Ancient One's eyes were deep. He could sense that the shadow's true form was an extremely powerful being, yet a calm and peaceful being. This was a good thing. But Sun Wukong's appearance already caused a discrepancy in my predictions of Earth's future, and now another has appeared. Ancient One secretly realized that he might no longer be able to use the time stone to predict Earth's future. Bang! Thor smashed an alien into the air with his hammer. Then, he landed on the ground and looked up at the distant shadow, a look of shock and excitement on his face. It's him. He's appeared. Thor recognized the Tathagata Buddha. The power displayed by Lin Feng, impersonating the Tathagata Buddha to free him from Odin's imprisonment, was something he would never forget. He was also grateful to the Tathagata Buddha. If it hadn't been for the Tathagata Buddha's help in freeing him and restoring his divine power, he didn't know what he would have done. But then, a sudden thought struck him, and his face changed. Loki. He glanced around, searching for Loki, but he couldn't find him. Furthermore, a large number of Chitauri soldiers were descending upon him, and even a giant mechanical worm was flying towards him. The golden shield only blocked the Chitauri army from attacking the city. But there were already many Chitauri soldiers inside. Damn it, Thor cursed, swinging his hammer to fight back. Hiss! On the aerospace carrier, Captain America and Nick gasped in unison, their eyes filled with disbelief. Far ahead, in the distance, they saw the shadow of a massive figure, sitting cross-legged. Several of the city's flagship buildings nearby were no taller than it. And above the shadow, a mirage-like phenomenon loomed. Behind it, a golden, transparent shield enveloped the entire city. Aliens outside couldn't get in. Any contact with the shield would result in a sudden explosion, with the aircraft and crew destroyed. What the hell is this? Has China actually developed something this high-tech? Captain America shook his head in disbelief. He'd previously been secretly proud of developing the aerospace carrier for the United States. But if China had developed such technology, what was there for him to be proud of? Upon hearing this, Nick turned to look at Captain America in surprise. Suddenly, it occurred to him that Captain America hadn't been following the online news, so he wasn't aware of China's current situation. Seeing this, it was only natural for him to think that way. With this thought in mind, he explained, this isn't technology developed by China. To be more precise, it's not the power of technology. What? Not the power of technology. Captain America was stunned and asked what was going on. Nick explained the story of Sun Wukong appearing in China, then went on to explain what Lin Feng had said at the lecture. Captain America was stunned, his heart agitated. Seeing Captain America's reaction, Nick added, now you understand why I asked you to be mentally prepared before we set off. Captain America remained stunned. He paused, then said, Mr. Fury, am I dreaming? Am I still in the glacier, unexcavated? He looked up at Nick. Captain America preferred to doubt he was still there, unexcavated, rather than believe such a far-fetched theory. He had previously considered Red Skull to be outrageous enough. I hadn't expected something even more outrageous than his, 1,000 times more outrageous. Nick ignored him, letting him process it slowly. Turning his head back towards Jiang City, Nick stared at the monstrous figure and thought, this person must be like Sun Wukong, a figure from ancient times awakened. But can he eliminate these aliens? It seems a little iffy. He's been completely still, as if he's merely protecting Jiang City. But it's useless if this continues. How long can this light shield last? Where's Sun Wukong? Meanwhile, Lin Feng, sensing the activation of the scripture, raised his lips. Simultaneously, the story he'd written about Sun Wukong's rampage in heaven had just concluded. My turn. System, play Sun Wukong, Lin Feng said. Yes, master. With that, a flash of red light appeared. He transformed into Sun Wukong. He clenched his fist, feeling the power. After Sun Wukong's role-playing privileges were upgraded to level 2, his strength also reached 20%. He's indeed stronger than before. After Lin Feng defeated the Destroyer, Sun Wukong's role-playing points were enough to upgrade his role-playing privileges, so he upgraded his role-playing privileges to level 2. Lin Feng smiled faintly, and without further delay, he leaped and disappeared into the air, leaving only a wisp of green smoke. 207. Chapter 206, Obscurity. 207. Chapter 206, Obscurity 2024-1017 Author, Good Monster Chapter 206, Obscurity Earth's technological level is far inferior to this. The space-jumping technology they provided Thanos was far beyond Hank Pym's comprehension. A few days ago, Lin Feng discussed this with Hank Pym, but Hank Pym stated that he currently couldn't even time travel. Wakanda has always been a closed country, but this time we've opened our doors and quickly established connections with the world. We hope that the world will learn about Wakanda. A majestic, slightly aged voice boomed from a roadside television. Contrary to Lin Feng's expectations, the voice of the Wakandan leader wasn't T'Challa's. Lin Feng looked up and saw a figure with slightly graying hair on the big screen, T'Challa's father, T'Chaka. He was forcefully expounding his views. Lagos suffered a disaster due to the invasion of the Vanguard Corps, and our Wakanda expatriates also suffered heavy losses. I mourn the loss of these young lives, but I am also proud of their bravery. They gave their lives to protect Lagos. I hope everyone can see their sacrifice as human beings. Lin Feng frowned. T'Chaka's words seemed to have a hidden meaning. Wakanda's personnel sent abroad died a worthy death as human beings, but what about the gods? Sure enough, T'Chaka then began to express his views on the gods, but here, I want to criticize the gods more. The Chinese gods promise to shelter us from the wind and rain in times of crisis, but what is the meaning of this promise? Either they never take action and let us fend for ourselves, or they completely protect us and don't let us get hurt. Like now, those who have paid a worthy death, and their families are heartbroken, while others are only grateful to the gods and don't consider the pain of those who have lost their loved ones. And those who are alive but become disabled, who will care about their pain? T'Chaka became more and more excited. As the king of Wakanda, he felt heartbroken for those people who lost their lives because the gods failed to act in time, so he had to stand up and protest against the irrationality of the gods' existence. We are grateful for the gods' grace and care, and for their assistance in times of crisis. However, the consequences of their actions are borne entirely by us humans. The gods appear when we are at the height of our fame, but are absent when we are licking our wounds. What are we? Slaves to be summoned and dismissed by the gods at will? No, we are self-sufficient. We thank the gods, but we must also rely on ourselves to contribute. T'Chaka expressed his views righteously, and his views delighted the U.S. president. Great. Finally, someone supports preventing the gods from appearing. At this moment, the Kree once again appeared in the U.S. president's office. Hi, Mr. President, how have you been? The U.S. president was in high spirits, looking at the familiar face offering him advice. I'm not sure what your name is yet, the Kree smiled faintly. Just call me Roger. Mr. President, shouldn't we seize this opportunity to launch a wave of action against the gods? The U.S. president was overjoyed. Great minds think alike, Mr. Roger. I've already figured it out. I'll secretly use funds to launch anti-god demonstrations, while simultaneously working with various governments to secure an agreement involving the gods. And then, I'll heavily publicize our hero, Miss Carol. With this multi-pronged approach, I'm sure I can undermine the gods' prestige. Roger looked at the U.S. president, who had suddenly come to his senses, and felt he was quite perceptive. He extended his hand. Then I wish you speedy success, Mr. President. He was secretly delighted. With such a fool actively helping to draw attention to them, the Kree could now develop their affairs in peace. Prime Minister Rikuro Koizumi of Sakura Country observed the cabinet ministers bickering, but he was in no rush to express his opinion. They all noticed that a voice opposing the gods was quietly growing stronger in the world. They were now debating whether they should wait and see, or go with the flow and unequivocally support the gods. After a long debate without any conclusion, they had no choice but to throw the question back to Koizumi Rikuro. Koizumi Rikuro felt his scalp tingling. He knew that the power of public opinion could influence many things, but he also knew that the power of the gods was difficult for humans to resist. How to balance these two aspects without offending public opinion made him feel very embarrassed. After a long thought, he remembered that the Sakura country still had a diplomatic ambassador, and he was delighted. Quick, contact Hashimoto Kanzuki and ask her opinion. A wave of opposition to the gods was quietly rising around the world, and people were expressing their opposition to the gods with a firm attitude. During random street interviews, reporters heard various voices. Gods should not exist. Humans should be self-reliant. Gods are redundant. Humans can get through the difficulties without them. If gods cannot help humans resist disasters and eliminate poverty, then their existence is meaningless. Some even openly shouted, "Thank you to the alien life for your efforts to save the life on Earth under the rule of gods. Although you have failed, you still have honor, and your spirit will live forever. Without gods, humans would have been extinct in various disasters long ago." From the Chitauri army to Hela, Dormammu, to Thanos, which one can humans defeat with their own strength? Instead of reflecting on their own weaknesses, they still delusionally think that everything can be solved without gods. Gods only help us resist invasion. What's wrong with them? Shouldn't the invaders be the ones to blame? Why are the gods who help us blamed, while the invaders are praised? It's ridiculous. Thank you, alien invaders. What have gods done for us? Did they just lend a helping hand when we were on the verge of extinction? Without them, we would have been colonized or even extinct long ago. The two sides argued relentlessly, but many overlooked T'Chaka's original message. Humanity should be grateful for the gods' help, but also self-reliant. They went to extremes, believing that gods either should not exist or should unconditionally protect humanity, attacking those who disagreed, even to the point of implicating their ancestors. The news media was overwhelmed by this massive wave of anti-theist sentiment and polarizing thinking, with reports related to the gods dominating the headlines and continuing to generate buzz. Online, only the Sakura nation remained silent. Meanwhile, the Sakura nation contacted Hashimoto Kanzuki, who is working in Lagos, via a dedicated line. Following Lin Feng's advice, Hashimoto Kanzuki delved deeper into history, reflected on the damage caused by the war of aggression, and expressed a willingness to atone for it. Lin Feng, upon seeing this, recommended her for a role in the post-war reconstruction fund, founded by Stark. Due to her dedication, exceptional abilities, and striking appearance, Stark considered her and offered her the role of ambassador for the fund. After Thanos' invasion, she immediately rushed to the hardest-hit Lagos area, actively contacting various parties, hoping they would mobilize resources to contribute to Lagos's reconstruction. At that moment, amidst the ruins of Lagos, Hashimoto Kanzuki was busy coordinating the movement of supplies. She'd spent the entire morning in a frenzy, liaising with various units, signing off on relief supplies, filming videos of the disaster zone, and even personally helping out when staff were short. She'd barely had a moment to rest when the cabinet hotline rang again. Hashimoto Kanzuki had no choice but to answer. After all, she was a Sakura Nation native, and everything depended on the Sakura Nation. Ms. Hashimoto, have you been following the global news lately? Hashimoto Kanzuki immediately understood why the cabinet had called her. As someone assigned by the Sakura Nation government specifically to oversee China's diplomatic affairs, Hashimoto Kanzuki was no fool. She'd heard about the protests against the gods that were popping up around the world, but she didn't care, as it didn't affect her work. But the Sakura government couldn't ignore this. Their relationship with the United States had already broken down, and they needed to hear the opinions of Hashimoto Kanzuki, who understood the Chinese situation, about how to express their stance toward China. To put it bluntly, they needed a way to counterweight to solidify their position. And she was the one who understood China best and was close to Lin Feng. Hashimoto Kanzuki instantly understood the details and, thinking of Lin Feng, solemnly advised, "Please inform the Prime Minister that these demonstrations are merely attempts by those with ulterior motives to instigate unrest. They will not shake China's foundation. Furthermore, this is only a brief surge, with little follow-up. We in the Sakura Nation should support China's stance in public opinion if possible. If we do not wish to offend the current public opinion, we must at least remain neutral. The gods may tolerate human willfulness and ignorance, but that does not mean we can unscrupulously challenge their authority." The voice on the other end of the line was also serious. "Understood, Ms. Hashimoto. I'll convey this to the Prime Minister." Meanwhile, another news outlet approached Hashimoto Kanzuki. "Ms. Hashimoto, Mr. Stark requested an interview with you." Stark provided substantial funding for the post-war reconstruction fund and was its nominal leader, but he held little responsibilities. Currently analyzing the query, he forwarded the media's interview request to Hashimoto Kanzuki. Hashimoto Kanzuki, who was about to refuse, suddenly thought of something and smiled. "Okay, I'm available anytime, Ms. Hashimoto Kanzuki. We are a news reporting team from UNESCO, and we've come to visit you today." Hashimoto Kanzuki responded politely with a smile. "Please start asking questions." She casually sat down on a piece of rubble, not caring at all that the worn and dusty debris might stain her clothing. "Ms. Hashimoto Kanzuki, are you aware of the recent global trends?" the reporter asked bluntly. Hashimoto Kanzuki pondered for a moment, then spoke frankly. "I've been busy with the reconstruction of Lagos lately and haven't paid much attention to the news. But I've been in contact with the outside world and have heard about a trend against the gods." "Is this what you are referring to?" "Exactly. What are your thoughts on this?" The reporter's question was direct and clear, as if expecting a clear position. Hashimoto Kanzuki chuckled. "Trends of thought? I don't think so. The emergence of trends of thought should promote the progress of people's thinking, but these global movements make me feel an anti-intellectual tendency. Even if we are not grateful to the gods, at least we should not blame them. I remember that Professor Lin Feng, the spokesperson for the gods, once conveyed that the gods only appear at the moment of life and death. In other words, without experiencing pain, how can the gods know whether humans are content with enjoyment or facing a life and death crisis? The people in the disaster area may blame the gods for not providing timely assistance, but how can those who have not experienced these accuse the gods without reason? What's more, why are they so confident that humans will be able to solve future threats? Gods are always unknown and only show their value when we need them. Isn't this the sadness of mankind?" Hashimoto Kanzuki's face gradually became serious, revealing his heartbroken feeling. The reporter and the cameraman exchanged a glance. "Ms. Hashimoto, is this your personal opinion, or the position of the entire post-war reconstruction fund?" Hashimoto Kanzuki pondered for a moment. This is probably my personal opinion. We can be grateful to the gods, but we can also be in awe of them. We can't unreasonably demand that they offer us sacrifices. Humanity should be self-reliant, not dependent on others for everything. I believe the gods feel the same way. Okay, Ms. Hashimoto, thank you for sharing, the reporter concluded the interview. Meanwhile, in the Avengers office building, Professor Lin Feng, the analysis results are in. Dr. Senna excitedly rushed out of the lab, followed by a weary-looking Stark, who smiled wryly because Senna was so excited that he had forgotten to put on his pants. For the past few days, they have been working tirelessly day and night to study the differences between the Kree and the Blue Stars, to prevent the Kree from unknowingly replacing their identities. Dr. Senna had contributed the most, and upon the results, he excitedly rushed out of the lab, completely ignoring the surprised looks of the Avengers staff. Stark had no choice but to pick up Senna's pants, put them in a bag, and walk towards Lin Feng's office. Professor Lin Feng, the analysis results are out. We have found the weakness of the Kree. Senna rushed into Lin Feng's office with excitement. Lin Feng was stunned at first, then closed the door and poured Senna a glass of water. He saw that Senna had an unshaven beard and dark circles under his eyes. It was obvious that he had been working day and night to crack the genetic code of the Kree and even forgot to put on pants. Senna took the water handed by Lin Feng and drank it all. I found the weakness of the Kree, thanks to Tony. First, under different gravity conditions, the Kree's ability to withstand far more than the Blue Star people, which is specifically manifested in the reaction of their skin and bones to heavy pressure. Secondly, the Kree's perception of light sensitivity is far inferior to that of the Blue Star people, and it takes them longer to adapt to strong light. And the third point, Senna talked incessantly, not realizing the embarrassment in his lower body. Chapter 41 Where's the Fighting Buddha? Chapter 41 Where's the Fighting Buddha? 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 41 Where's the Fighting Buddha? Loki looked smug, raised his scepter, and said to the Chitauri army that was still attacking the Golden Light Shield and the Phantom of the Tathagata Buddha, listen up, everyone outside, attack other cities. Boom boom boom, the order was issued. All the Chitauri soldiers outside immediately stopped attacking and flew towards the mainland in unison. The Chitauri army flying all over the sky looked like a locust plague. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's pupils shrank, and his face was full of astonishment. Xiangjiang City has been destroyed, and now they are going to attack other cities. Ha ha ha, Loki roared with laughter, looking up to the heavens. What can you do now? All you can do is stare at me. But what good is that? It won't be long before my Chitauri army captures the next city. This planet will be mine sooner or later. Loki's voice, enchanted with magic to diffuse and penetrate, carried far. The survivors all heard it, and they also saw the aliens flying across the sky outside the golden light barrier. They froze in shock, and then panic set in again. It's over, it's over. These aliens are attacking the next city. Woo, woo, woo. Let's not talk about that for now. There are so many aliens in this golden shield. What should we do? Is this golden shadow really only defensive? It has no offensive capabilities. I don't know. Where's Sun Wukong? Why hasn't Sun Wukong arrived yet? If he comes, we'll definitely be saved. Looking at this, even Sun Wukong can't guarantee victory. Look at all these aliens. They're like a swarm of locusts. And there are those giant, mechanical worms. They're hideous and terrifying. They look tough to deal with. Woo, woo, woo. What should we do? Is Earth really going to be taken over by aliens? What will become of us? Will we become slaves? Everyone was talking, panicking and fearful again. Thor, hearing Loki's arrogant words, was anxious as he dealt with the alien soldiers. Damn it, this Loki is really testing the limits of his own demise. Isn't this just angering that Tathagata Buddha? At that moment, a commanding voice echoed in his ears. Thor, father. Thor's whole body trembled at the sound, his mind blanking for a moment. Fortunately, he quickly recovered, dodging an alien soldier's attack and throwing his hammer at it. With a bang, it knocked it off the aircraft, then reached out to recall the hammer. Odin's voice rang out again, take care of yourself. Don't provoke that golden shadow. Thor's heart trembled. He instantly realized that his father must know everything. Now suddenly contacting him was a reminder. He asked, what about Loki, Alice? I tried to persuade Loki to stop, but he didn't listen. Thor, I know, Thor replied after a long pause. His expression was complex. From his father's words, he could already imagine Loki's reaction at that moment. He certainly didn't believe what his father said. No one can persuade Loki now, Thor said helplessly. After contacting his eldest son, Odin instructed Heimdall not to look toward Earth again, lest the golden figure's true form appear and discover someone was spying on Earth, potentially causing displeasure. Heimdall said nothing, silently obeying the king's instructions and not looking toward Earth again. Chen Haitian's face changed drastically. With so many alien soldiers, it wouldn't take long to destroy the next city. Loki, seeing Chen Haitian's silence and a look of shock on his face, laughed again. Ha ha ha, are you scared now? I'll give you one more chance. Submit to me, kneel before me, and I'll spare your life. Loki cast his spell again, amplifying and penetrating his voice, instantly echoing in all directions. Everyone heard, filled with despair and fear. Chen Haitian gritted his teeth, his anger surging. Immediately, he turned to look at the Buddha's shadowy figure and prayed sincerely and devoutly, Buddha, if you truly possess the power of protection, please protect us. Chen Haitian wasn't sure if his prayer would avail. But he had no other choice but to give it a try. Seeing Chen Haitian staring at the Buddha's shadowy figure, Loki guessed what he was thinking. But he dismissed him with a dismissive tone. What? You still think this shadowy figure can help you? Ha ha ha, you're dreaming. This shadowy figure is clearly just bluffing. All this fuss, only to be defensive in the end. What good is that? Loki's smile was thick, his words dripping with sarcasm. But then, he heard a voice that startled him. Amitabha, the Buddha's shadowy figure spoke again after appearing. Where is the fighting Buddha? The Buddha's words, solemn and majestic, spread in all directions. Loki was startled. Upon hearing this, the survivors were collectively stunned. They quickly reacted, but their faces were filled with confusion. Fighting Buddha? Who is that? What was this golden figure suddenly calling for? Was he calling for help? Everyone was surprised, confused, and excited. However, some people simply didn't react at all. This was all so sudden. Chen Haitian was stunned. He hadn't expected such a sudden event. He quickly came to his senses. Could it be that his prayers had worked? Had the other party called for help? But who was this fighting Buddha? Was he the third ancient figure to awaken? That title seemed quite impressive. Chen Haitian pondered, feeling excited. Loki was also surprised when he heard this, curious about this fighting Buddha. However, a sudden thought quickly calmed him down. He looked around but didn't see any fighting Buddha, so he sneered at the shadow of Tathagata Buddha. Haha, where's the fighting Buddha you mentioned? Not to mention that he didn't come. Even if he came, what's the use? I already know the strength of you guys. If you have the guts, just show up and see how my Chitauri army will destroy you. Loki looked confident and arrogant, as if he was invincible with the Chitauri army in his hands. In fact, he did have the capital to be arrogant. The Chitauri conquered the universe, searched for the Infinity Stones, and destroyed the civilizations of countless planets. This was enough to show their strength. And just as he finished speaking, suddenly, a familiar and unruly voice rang out between heaven and earth. Hey! Don't be so arrogant, you evildoers. Son, I'm here. 208. Chapter 207 Bold Idea. 208. Chapter 207 Bold Ideas 2024-1018 Author, Good Monster Chapter 207 Bold Ideas Stark also arrived and saw Senna immersed in his discovery. He did not interrupt him, but smiled silently. After greeting Lin Feng, he put down the bag and left the office. He still had a lot of things to do. Now that the analysis of the Kree has come to an end, the technological means to counter the Kree also require his efforts. Senna finished his discovery in one breath, and Lin Feng handed him his pants. Senna looked down and saw that he was only wearing underwear. He couldn't help feeling embarrassed. Lin Feng patted his shoulder. Dr. Senna, you have worked hard these days, you must take care of yourself. We still have to fight the Kree next. Senna nodded solemnly. Don't worry, I will stick to it. Lin Feng watched Senna leave, his heart full of admiration. This group of people is often misunderstood. Stark is a rebellious playboy. Senna is a scientist who transforms when angry. There are also eccentric doctors like Strange, spies like Natasha, and ordinary people who have experienced suffering like the Maximoff siblings. They are different, but they never make excuses, simply protecting the safety of Blue Planet. They earn Lin Feng's sincere admiration. Globally, anti-God and anti-God voices are growing stronger. even escalating into violent conflict, echoing the turmoil of the Chinese divine cult in the past. Apart from a few countries like China, Sakura, and Wakanda, intense violence has broken out around the world, forcing authorities to deploy large police forces to maintain order. In light of this dire situation, Lin Feng, as a spokesperson for the gods, received an interview invitation from UNESCO, hoping to express his position on the matter. In fact, even without UNESCO's initiative, Lin Feng quickly issued a statement upon learning of the first violent incident, calling for peaceful coexistence and rational expression of dissent. He emphasized that the gods will not intervene in human disputes, and that human actions will not affect the gods. He urged everyone to remain calm, but his efforts were limited. Later, Lin Feng attempted a prompt apology, reflecting on his shortcomings as a spokesperson for the gods, failing to accurately convey humanity's demands and the gods' expectations. While he couldn't control public opinion or his followers, he exercised self-discipline and actively advocated for peace. He believed that as a public figure, regardless of whether responsibility lay with them, they should bravely shoulder it. His outreach did have some impact. Among the anti-God movement, many held neutral views toward the gods. They initially preferred not to be drawn into the conflict, but were forced to fight back when the anti-God movement disrupted their daily lives. Thanks to Lin Feng's words, the government strengthened security measures, and the arrests of violent anti-God elements, the situation has gradually calmed. With courageous individuals taking responsibility, the situation can be quickly brought under control. UNESCO reporters visited the Avengers, broadcasting their construction live to the world, and eventually arrived at Lin Feng's office. Lin Feng opened the door for them and politely said, "Come in." The reporter got straight to the point. "Professor Lin Feng, what are your thoughts on the recent violent clashes?" Lin Feng paused before expressing his opinion. "In any case, violence is unwise. Those who oppose the gods and those who oppose anti-theists should express their opinions rationally, not resort to violence. I sympathize with the victims of the violence, and as a spokesperson for God, I deeply apologize. If I could more clearly convey humanity's demands, perhaps the bloodshed could be reduced." The reporter was impressed by Lin Feng's honesty and humility, but as a journalist, she needed to remain neutral and could not express her support explicitly. In her view, Lin Feng had made it clear that God only appears in times of crisis, and that humanity must fend for itself the rest of the time. The reporter asked from a different angle, "Then, how do you think we should clearly convey the demands of mankind?" Lin Feng smiled and said, "This is easier said than done, because people's hearts are different. However, the approach of the US government is worth learning from. Perhaps, governments around the world can jointly issue a document that lists general principles and specifically breaks down human demands. Of course, this is just a good wish. Whether God will listen depends on God." The reporter asked again, "If there really is such a document, do you think God will listen to human opinions?" Lin Feng pondered for a moment and slowly replied, "Whether God will respect human opinions is actually uncertain. God may protect us just on a whim. What if one day, they choose to destroy us? Not all gods have feelings for humans like Yang. Although the space they live in overlaps with ours, their abilities far exceed ours. Even if they really want to destroy us and rebuild civilization, what does it have to do with us?" The reporter's face turned pale. "Professor Lin Feng, you are not kidding, are you?" Lin Feng shook his head firmly. "I'm not kidding. My research on God may be deeper than anyone else on Blue Planet, but it's only a superficial one. However, what is certain is that God is currently quite friendly to humanity. But what if one day God only wants obedient humans? Perhaps, like the God in the Bible, he will use a flood to eliminate the disobedient. Humanity is powerless against God, but God can easily overturn the human world. So, what exactly is the reason for the global anti-God trend? No matter how much they stir up, they only harm humanity themselves and have no impact on God. You can blame God for not saving you, but you can't take your anger out on others. They are just as much a being on Blue Planet as you are." After listening to Lin Feng's explanation, the reporter solemnly accepted his advice. After the news report was broadcast, many people began to reflect on their own actions and worried about the power of God. The global anti-God trend gradually weakened, and except for a few hardline groups, it has basically disappeared. The storm came and went quickly. "Professor Lin Feng, your move is truly brilliant. We've now confirmed that the Kree are involved in the group still promoting anti-God ideology." Stark approached, holding an investigative report. The inexplicable rise of anti-God sentiment alarmed the Avengers, who suspected a hidden mastermind. Upon learning of the Kree's existence, they meticulously devised a plan. Lin Feng's speech was crucial to the plan, and his responsibility. His candor sparked deep reflection. The rapid decline of anti-God sentiment was largely due to people's reluctance to blindly follow trends. We can now confirm that the U.S. government was secretly colluding with the Kree. The rise of anti-God sentiment stemmed from the U.S.'s promotion of Carol, a national hero. Some, inciting the uprising, began to claim that humanity did not need divine protection. Even worse, they exploited the casualties of the Vanguard invasion as weapons, questioning why the gods had failed to protect them. The U.S. has consistently sought to thwart China's rise and maintain its hegemony, using any means necessary. With the support of the Kree, they frequently launched anti-God activities, which was understandable. Therefore, everyone closely monitored developments in the United States. As expected, after the anti-God wave had quickly come and gone, the few remaining anti-God groups concentrated in the United States. Stark, Senna, Natasha, and others quietly infiltrated these groups, using the equipment invented by Senna and Stark to covertly monitor the Kree's activities. Del, having not seen them for a long time, looked at the busy figures and shook his head. This place was completely different from the Dark Elves' way of living together, but she could feel the warmth here, which she found somewhat baffling. Thanos' crisis had come and gone so quickly that many Dark Elves were unaware of what had happened. But upon returning to Earth and witnessing the reconstruction of the disaster-stricken areas, Del immediately understood the situation. Blue Planet seemed to be caught in a vicious cycle. No sooner had one disaster passed than another was brewing. In the Dark Elves' perception, this seemed to be the planet's cursed fate. And if a cursed planet could not withstand repeated blows, it would be reduced to the dust of history, mercilessly crushed by the torrent of history. I wonder if there's such a thing on Blue Planet. Del, can you tell us more about the Kree? Lin Feng interrupted her thoughts. Del, coming to her senses, nodded quickly after hearing Lin Feng's question. Thor and Loki were still in Asgard and not on Blue Planet, so the Dark Elves, who were also highly intelligent beings, were undoubtedly the ones who knew the Kree best. The Kree are blue in color and named after their home planet, Kree. Their original living environment was one of high gravity and great temperature differences between day and night. Later, they acquired the technology of the Skrulls, and their interstellar civilization developed rapidly. Of course, this also led to a long war between the Kree and the Skrulls. They possess a life form called Supreme Intelligence, and their knowledge reserves and civilization level far exceed those of your Blue Planet. The Kree are extremely warlike. If their planet had not been destroyed, the threat they pose now would probably be greater than Thanos. Hearing this, Senna was a little confused. Ms. Del, excuse me, according to what you said, their technological level is extremely high, so how did their planet destroy? Del was stunned and shook her head. I don't know the specific details, but it is rumored that a planet called Ego swallowed up their home planet. There is also a saying that a man who claims to be a god destroyed their planet. Some people also believe that it was the erosion of the black hole that made their home planet unable to escape. These things happened a long time ago, and Kree no longer existed before I was born. Lin Feng already had an idea after hearing this. The celestial god Ego, Galactus, and father of Star-Lord Quill, was the one who destroyed the Kree. Despite possessing the technological prowess to create Rodin and Carol, the Kree were unable to stop Ego's encroachment. This Ego's power might even surpass Thanos. However, the focus now was on the Kree, and Ego might not be interested in Blue Planet. Therefore, everyone continued to listen to Del's introduction. From what I understand, their anatomy is similar to yours, but their combat capabilities and physical fitness far surpass yours. They can survive conditions like extreme gravity, extreme temperature swings, and thin oxygen. Furthermore, the potential energy and power of their weapons far surpass yours. They've held off on Blue Planet until now, likely due to the Sorcerer Supreme's intervention and the threat of Thanos. Now that Thanos is dead and the Sorcerer Supreme is still a novice, the only real threat to them on Blue Planet is the Chinese gods, so they're constantly provoking the US government just to test the gods' limits. Lin Feng looked at Stark and found him staring back. The two of them glanced at Senna simultaneously. Yes, that's understandable. If they can figure out the gods' bottom line, it's probably time for them to go all out, Del stated objectively. After a detailed overview of the Kree, Dell decided there was nothing else to do and decided to travel to Asgard via the blue planet's teleportation array. Ultron was busy deploying energy shields to every household, hoping to further mitigate the risks and losses humanity might face in the future. Stark left Senna behind while the others dispersed, intending to explore the Kree's weaknesses through their own methods. Judging by the current situation, the Kree were indeed a formidable race. Their genetic makeup was similar to humans, but their individual combat capabilities were vastly different. Senna looked at Stark and Lin Feng in confusion, and asked, "What's wrong? Is there anything else?" "I still need to go back to do experiments." Stark made coffee by himself. "Professor Lin, if I remember correctly, God hopes that humans can be self-reliant. And you once mentioned in a lecture that the life level of God has surpassed that of humans. They are no longer intelligent creatures, right?" Before Senna fully understood what Stark meant, Lin Feng had already answered his question. Humans can also reach the level of gods through acquired efforts. For example, the ancestors of China, Emperor Yan and Wang, as well as Qiyu and Xingdian of their time, and Fengbo, Yu Shi, Ying Long, Zhuan Nu and others who fought with them. These are all legendary figures who are mortals but can be on par with gods. They can call the wind and rain, drive thunder and lightning, and are omnipotent. After hearing this, Senna suddenly realized, you want to give humans the opportunity to achieve a higher level of evolution, and even have the possibility of transcending the level of intelligent life, right? That's why you kept me. Stark put his arm around his shoulders and said, "That's right, Dr. Senna. You're the only one in the Avengers who has reached the top level in the field of organic biology, and you're the only one who can point us in the right direction of evolution." At this point, Stark looked at Lin Feng and said, "I originally thought that evolving to the form of Thor and the others would be very complicated, but now it seems like a godsend." Lin Feng also smiled and said, "This is indeed a coexistence of opportunities and challenges. We must not take it lightly. We still know very little about the Kree and the humans on Blue Star. Let's wait and see what news Natasha and Ultron have. But their appearance is truly too coincidental. It's simply a godsend." Senna was a little confused about their thoughts again. He looked at Stark, then at Lin Feng, and found that they were both smiling at him. "What are you talking about?" Stark smiled and pinched Senna's shoulders. "Brother, think about it, God doesn't care about humans, so even if people evolve, it's not an offense in the eyes of God. He won't be like God, angry because humans built the Tower of Babel. Therefore, it is theoretically possible for humans to enter a higher level of life." Chapter 43 Lin Feng was surrounded by Chitauri soldiers. Chapter 43, Lin Feng is surrounded by the Chitauri, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 43, Lin Feng is surrounded by the Chitauri. Seeing this, Chen Haitian took a breath, his face filled with surprise. Loki, however, still looked confident of victory. Suddenly, he ordered the Chitauri soldiers to fly their aircraft towards Lin Feng. Seeing Loki suddenly fly away, Chen Haitian's face showed surprise. But when he saw that he was flying in the direction of Sun Wukong, his surprise turned to astonishment, unsure of what Loki was going to do. Thor also saw this. He stared, unable to understand what Loki was up to. Loki flew below Lin Feng. He was inside the golden shield, while Lin Feng was outside. Loki looked at the fighting Lin Feng and sneered, "Pause. All of you disperse. I have something to say to him." With that, the Chitauri soldiers retreated like a tide, forming a circle. Lin Feng was at the center of the circle. Lin Feng paused his swing, slinging his club over his shoulder, looking down at Loki. He was perplexed, unsure of what Loki was up to. Loki met Lin Feng's gaze, a meaningful smile. "I know you're confused. Why am I here? You haven't seen me, but I have." Lin Feng was stunned. He was impersonating Sun Wukong. Where had he seen him before? But on second thought, he understood. Last time they fought the Destroyer, Loki must have seen him through the Destroyer's vision. However, since he was now impersonating Sun Wukong, he had to speak from Sun Wukong's perspective. "Where have you seen me before? Why haven't I seen you before?" Lin Feng finished, then chided him. "Let's not talk about that. Where did you come from, you monster? How dare you lead a bunch of little monsters to cause trouble here and harm lives?" "Haha, I'm not a monster." Loki didn't understand what the word monster meant, but he could guess it wasn't a good word. He added, "I am a god." "God? Another hairy god?" Lin Feng asked, puzzled. Loki didn't understand the meaning, but he could tell that hairy god wasn't a nice title. But why the again? Thor, upon hearing this, understood. Sun Wukong was referring to him. Honestly, hearing this title made him feel somewhat frustrated. He was the Prince of Asgard, Odin's eldest son, a true god among the 9 realms. But in Sun Wukong's mouth, he became Hairy God, a seemingly inferior term for a god. Thor didn't know what Sun Wukong's era was like. If he knew, he would have known better. Sun Wukong's address to them was fine. Loki stopped thinking about the again, but he still felt annoyed by the title Hairy God, and even felt anger. His expression turned cold, and he berated, "What the hell is this god? I'm a noble god. You, a lowly creature, are still stubborn even when death is imminent. I've already ascertained your strength. You're not that strong, or rather, none of you are. You ruined my plan last time, and I'm still dealing with you. Now let's settle the score, both old and new." "Kneel down." Loki pointed his scepter at Lin Feng, trying to make him kneel. Ho ha. Lin Feng laughed heartily at this, thinking, I fooled Loki. However, he was now playing the role of Sun Wukong, so he had to speak from his perspective. When you wreaked havoc in heaven, I, Sun Wukong, wasn't afraid. Now, you, a bunch of puny soldiers and generals, dare to make me kneel down and die? Kill, Lin Feng shouted angrily. He was clad in ancient-style battle armor, his fiery red cape fluttering in the wind. Standing in midair, he looked elegant and handsome. At that moment, Lin Feng seemed to truly experience the state of mind of Sun Wukong. As soon as he uttered the word kill, an invisible wave of energy erupted from his body, instantly charging in all directions. The Chitauri soldiers forming the encirclement were struck, their aircraft becoming unstable and swaying backwards. Hiss. Seeing this, Chen Haitian took a deep breath, sensing a sense of unruly defiance. At the same time, he also heard a key point, the havoc in Heavenly Palace. This should be something that happened to Sun Wukong before, right? Chen Haitian thought to himself. Loki sneered, unconcerned with Lin Feng's words. Shrimp soldiers and crab generals? Haha, you don't know what kind of army you're facing, Loki taunted. He pointed his scepter at Lin Feng and said, everyone outside, charge. Kill him, boom boom boom, the command was given. The Chitauri soldiers, who had formed the encirclement, collectively screamed and rushed towards Lin Feng. Some directly piloted their aircraft in an attempt to ram Lin Feng. Others continuously launched beam attacks at Lin Feng. Bang, bang, ha! Lin Feng's figure flashed by like a fleeting shadow, swift, like a streak of fiery red light, dodging the beam attacks through the air. He swung his golden cudgel, carrying off one Chitauri soldier after another. No Chitauri soldier survived being struck by his golden cudgel. For a moment, the sky was a constant barrage of beam attacks, accompanied by bursts of fire and a constant thud. Some beam attacks even managed to strike the golden shield. But they had no effect, only creating ripples like water, unable to damage it at all. The survivors of the city were stunned by this scene. Holy crap! This is what combat looks like. Isn't it breathtaking? Yet, even computer special effects can't produce something like this. Nonsense. Can Sun Wukong win? I don't know. It feels a bit risky. There are just too many aliens. And did you see? Sun Wukong seems to be constantly dodging the beam attacks. But at this rate, with so many enemies, how long will it take to defeat them? And aliens keep appearing in that space tunnel. Yeah, if this keeps up, Sun Wukong will eventually run out of energy. Huh? People hid in the ruins, talking among themselves, worried that Sun Wukong wouldn't be able to defeat these aliens. Chen Haitian also looked worried about this. But then, it suddenly occurred to him, since Tathagata Buda summoned Sun Wukong, then he should be able to do it, right? Chen Haitian pondered. But he wasn't sure. Loki smiled confidently. Oh, how long will this fight last? It seems that what Scholar Lin Feng said was right. This Sun Wukong is indeed weak. If outnumbered, he'll be defeated. Even if we wear him down, we'll eventually kill him. Loki could almost see Lin Feng being worn down. Boom boom boom, Lin Feng moved with swift speed, like a streak of fiery red light, effortlessly navigating the encirclement of the Chitauri soldiers, taking their lives one after another. However, the Chitauri soldiers also noticed this and began to gather in large numbers, restricting Lin Feng's movement. Soon, an enormous sphere of Chitauri soldiers appeared, and Lin Feng was trapped within it. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's face changed. 209. How is Chapter 208 progressing? 209. Chapter 208 How is the progress? 2024-1019 Author, Good Monster Chapter 208 How is the progress? Lin Feng even handed the puzzled Senna a cup of coffee, and now, this is not just theory, there are living examples in front of us. First, Thor, Loki, and El, they are all in the bodies of intelligent creatures like us, but they have touched the realm of rules. The Kree are between us and Asgard. They still retain their bodies and have not been exposed to the rules, but their technology can support them to go further. That's why I say that this is both an opportunity and a challenge for us. The specific progress depends on whether we can seize the opportunity. Hearing this, Senna suddenly realized, I understand. You want humans to evolve, step by step. First reach the level of advanced intelligent creatures, and then try to touch the realm of rules. This cannot be achieved overnight. You hope that humans will first have the technological level of the Kree as a transition, and then go a step further and let human biological quality reach the level of Asgard. My God, this is really a bold idea. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. That's right, Dr. Senna, that's what you mean. But it's not crazy. You've shown everyone that the Kree and the Blue Star people are practically brothers, but in terms of average individual quality, the Blue Star people are far inferior to the Kree. The reason is simply their living environment and technological level. As the saying goes, if someone doesn't offend me, I won't offend them, but if someone offends me, I will definitely offend them. They're already eyeing Blue Star, so it's not too much for us to retaliate, right? We don't need much, just to keep their technological means. Senna gave a wry smile. That's easier said than done. The Kree are in the dark, and we're in the light. There are still many problems if we really want to take action. Lin Feng shrugged. You can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. We don't need to rush. They're not as impatient as Thanos. Instead, they want to boil the frog in warm water and devour us completely. Let's fight back and see who will be the final victor. Although we don't have the advantage in technology, now with the equipment you provide and the mass production of Ultron, at least we are not so passive. Senna gave a wry smile and extended his hand, which the other two took. The three exchanged a silent glance, a tacit understanding. A timid voice called from outside the door, Professor Lin, may I come in? The three exchanged glances, and Stark and Senna took the opportunity to say goodbye and leave Lin Feng's office. Lin Feng smiled. Come in, Ms. Hashimoto. Given the increasing violence sparked by the anti-God movement and the nearing completion of reconstruction efforts in Lagos, Stark decided to bring Hashimoto Kanzuki back to the Avengers headquarters for safety reasons. Of course, this move had another deeper meaning. Stark hoped Hashimoto Kanzuki would become a member of the Avengers. Hashimoto Kanzuki's exceptional coordination and management skills impressed Stark. Her organization and meticulousness truly lived up to her secretarial background. The Avengers currently had a large number of combatants and researchers, but lacked support staff and management personnel to coordinate and manage the work. The addition of Hashimoto Kanzuki would undoubtedly be a significant boost. Following Hashimoto Kanzuki's suggestion, the Avengers released some internal information during an interview in an effort to make the Avengers more accessible to the general public. They also used the opportunity to conduct free publicity and recruit more service personnel. Hashimoto Kanzuki walked over and looked at Lin Feng. Professor Lin, I have some questions for you. Lin Feng stared at her and suddenly said, Miss Hashimoto, I had Natasha install a locator for you without your knowledge. I hope you don't mind. Hashimoto Kanzuki was slightly stunned, then shook her head. How could that be, Professor Lin? I know you're concerned about our safety. By the way, Professor Lin, what is your relationship with the gods? Lin Feng smiled faintly. Me and the gods? Miss Hashimoto, you shouldn't put me before the gods. The gods wouldn't mind, but I would. Besides, Hashimoto Kanzuki actually knew about the locator because it was her suggestion. The fake Hashimoto Kanzuki's eyes glared, and just as she was about to draw her weapon to attack, she suddenly raised her hands and was forced to face Lin Feng. At that moment, Stark, weapon in hand, stood behind her and asked curiously, Friend from Kree, what should we call you? During the Avengers civilianization process, Hashimoto Kanzuki proposed equipping every Avengers staff member with a locator and identifier to prevent infiltration. Testing showed that even an Asgardian like Loki couldn't evade the identifier, and he couldn't find its location. The appearance of the fake Hashimoto Kanzuki set off alarms on several people's identifiers. The three of them took advantage of the situation, with Stark and Senna pretending to leave while actually reaching for their weapons. On television, T'Chaka continued his speech, My previous words were not against the gods. I did criticize them for failing to adequately protect humanity, but that's no reason to oppose them. Without them, the human casualties would be far greater. Fellow citizens of the world, please do not go to extremes, and especially do not become violent, for that only harms us. In a nondescript house in Cleveland, a drunken man was watching TV. Suddenly, the sound of a car crash was heard outside, followed by the sirens. Soon, there was a knock on the door. "I'm sorry, I drove onto the sidewalk and accidentally hit another car. I see you're the only one living nearby, so the car should be yours, right? We can settle this privately. Of course, if you want to call the police, wouldn't object." The man's sobriety came immediately upon hearing the word police. Upon learning that the other party was willing to settle the matter privately, he quickly said, no need to call the police, just settle it privately." He let down his guard and unleashed a bolt without warning. However, as soon as he pulled the bolt, he felt a powerful force surge from outside, as if someone was trying to force their way in. Realizing something was amiss, the man tried to close the door again, but it was too late. The person outside had already opened it and knocked him unconscious. After knocking the big man unconscious, Helmut glanced at T'Chaka on TV and spat. "Bah, hypocritical and shameless traitor. I thought you were a staunch opponent of God, but I didn't expect you to be cowardly because of the bloodshed." He looked at the Hydra officer who was deceived by his superb acting skills and sneered, "I just don't know what the consequences of your death will be." Rog came to the U.S. President's office again. "Mr. President, how are you?" The U.S. President was extremely excited to see Rog. "Mr. Rog, I am so happy to see you. You see, more and more countries are agreeing to conclude an agreement to place the contacts of the gods under the supervision of a small group. In the future, any situation will require the guy named Lin Feng to report to the group. And the only contact channel for the gods at present is Lin Feng, so we can limit the gods to the greatest extent." Rog couldn't help but praise, "Mr. President, your move is really brilliant. I have to admire your wisdom. With this idea of yours, coupled with Miss Carol's ability, people will gradually realize that the gods are not their only option." The U.S. President smirked, oblivious to the cunning glint in Rogue's eyes. The next moment, he fainted. "That's nothing better than using a knife to kill someone. As a president, you're quite adept at scheming, but you shouldn't be so blindly trusting," Rogue scoffed. Recently, Wakanda, the U.S., and many other countries jointly released the draft of the Sokovia Accords. Its core content aims to restrict Lin Feng's freedom, hoping he will remain open and honest in his communications with the gods. At the same time, he should convey humanity's demands to the gods as best he can. It's hoped that the gods will only intervene in human affairs during major crises, not in mundane matters. The news on TV didn't catch Lin Feng's attention. Using the locator on Hashimoto Kanzuki's body, he quickly located her captivity. The Kree, overconfident in their technology, had left no guards, instead laying traps and detection devices everywhere. However, Lin Feng, using his divine power, quietly infiltrated the area, not only rescuing the people but also leaving behind a clone disguised as the abducted Hashimoto Kanzuki. From being tied up and sitting still for so long, Hashimoto Kanayu's legs were numb. Lin Feng had no choice but to pick her up and leave the area. Stark had originally planned a detailed plan, as Del had stated that even with her powers, there was no guarantee she could evade detection by the Kree technology. Considering the Dark Elves and Asgardians were both highly intelligent, they hesitated to act rashly. But Lin Feng quickly made the excuse that the gods would help him, as they were also wary of the Kree's presence. As Lin Feng carried Hashimoto Kanayu, she shyly said in his arms, "I'm sorry to trouble you, Professor Lin Feng." Lin Feng replied expressionlessly. Hashimoto Kanayu suddenly remembered something. "Professor Lin, they read some of my memories, mainly about you." Lin Feng was slightly surprised, but said nothing more. "I understand. You should rest and recover." With that, he teleported directly to his office. Hashimoto Kanayu was stunned at first, then exclaimed in surprise, "So, Professor Lin, you're really?" Lin Feng interrupted her, "It's good to know. You don't have to say it. Can you keep it a secret from me?" Hashimoto Kanayu nodded solemnly, then thought again, "Since you're a god, you should be able to use your divine power to imprison or erase my memory, right?" Lin Feng shook his head decisively, "I won't easily interfere in human affairs. You're also human, and I respect your wishes and attitude. Now that you know about this and choose to keep it secret, I choose to trust you, that's all. Hashimoto Kanai still felt a little worried, but I'm only human after all. If the Kree kidnapped me and read my memory again, your identity might be exposed. For safety's sake, you can erase my memory. Lin Feng smiled. Like I said, I respect your choice. But there's no need to erase it. I'll give you some insurance, which is enough. He snapped his fingers and added, don't be polite to me just because you know my identity. Call me whatever you want. Being polite will only make me feel distant. Hashimoto Kanzuki nodded cautiously, then, thinking of Lin Feng's words, nodded boldly to show understanding. Lin Feng picked up his coffee. Although using divine power is simple, I'd rather you tell me how you discovered this. The Kree had accessed Hashimoto Kanzuki's memories, and therefore sent a fake Hashimoto Kanzuki to test Lin Feng's relationship with the gods. Their thinking was likely to capture the culprit first. If they could determine Lin Feng's specific relationship with the gods, they would focus their forces on him, eliminating the greatest threat to Earth's invasion. Clearly, Hashimoto Kanzuki had already speculated about Lin Feng's relationship with the gods, and this speculation had been going on for some time. Unlike Loki, Strange, and the others, who believed Lin Feng was the spokesperson for the gods from the outset, Hashimoto Kanzuki was antagonistic toward Lin Feng from the outset, making it easier to detect flaws. Initially, I was hostile to you because I didn't want to believe your stance on war and our country's past mistakes, Hashimoto Kanzuki said slowly. Lin Feng was stunned, then realized the key point. Loki, Strange, and Stark weren't stupid, they had chosen to believe him from the beginning. Hashimoto Kanzuki, however, had been at odds with him from the start, making it easier for him to uncover the truth. Do you remember when the US sent the Sakura assassins? Ever since we met, I felt you were incredibly powerful. You could summon gods that others couldn't see, even wholesale, Hashimoto Kanzuki said with a smile. Lin Feng felt a little helpless, the word wholesale was so apt, and there was the Immortal Island's arrival. I was wondering why the gods didn't mind you being so late. Everyone assumed the gods truly cared, but then it occurred to me, what if you were actually a god? Would that make more sense? A person could wait as long as they wanted, Hashimoto Kanzuki continued. Lin Feng gave a wry smile, unable to help but marvel at the strength of a woman's sixth sense. Subsequent events have shown that the gods and you share the same attitude. For example, in the case of the Huaxia divine cult, right after you denounced them, Yang Jian appeared in person, denouncing them as a cult. Isn't that a coincidence? Hashimoto Kanzuki recounted the details point by point. Lin Feng smiled. Now that you've finished, get some rest. Remember our agreement? Hashimoto Kanai was taken aback, then smiled and nodded. She would definitely keep the secret. Wakanda's openness paved the way for the Avengers to establish contact with it. With Hashimoto Kanai's active promotion, Wakanda readily agreed to a commercial partnership with the Avengers, generously providing them with a portion of their precious vibranium. On Earth, without the aid of divine magic, vibranium is undoubtedly the most powerful material, its toughness and compatibility far exceeding that of other alloy metals. Dr. Zhao, how is the progress? Lin Feng asked curiously, looking at Zhao Halen, who was concentrating on adjusting the data. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 44, Pull out a hair and blow out 10,000 monkeys. Chapter 44 Pull out a hair and blow out 10,000 monkeys, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 44 Pull out a hair and blow out 10,000 monkeys. All the survivors saw this scene, their faces changed drastically, they were terrified, and they dared not believe that Sun Wukong was trapped inside. It's over, Sun Wukong is trapped inside, damn aliens, damn it, woo woo woo, we are finished now. No, I don't believe Sun Wukong is so weak. Yes. Everyone saw the momentum of his flight just now, right? He can't be so weak. There was a lot of discussion. Some people were emotional and didn't believe that Sun Wukong could be so weak. But some people were already desperate. Sun Wukong was already trapped. What hope was there? A feeling of sadness and despair gradually spread. Ha ha ha, Loki laughed heartily, venting his inner joy of revenge. Sun Wukong, you didn't expect this, did you? This is retribution for obstructing my plan, Sun Wukong was trapped among the Chitauri soldiers, bound to die. Next, we must continue the attack on the city. With this thought, Loki looked at the Chitauri soldiers around him and gave an order: continue to attack this city and the people of Earth until they surrender. Boom boom boom. The Chitauri soldiers, receiving the order, sprang into action again. Chen Haitian, watching this, looked despairing, his eyes drained of life. What else could he do? Sun Wukong was trapped. Buzz buzz buzz, but just then, a series of buzzing sounds began to rise. Chen Haitian heard it and instinctively looked around, searching for the source. But after searching everywhere, there seemed to be no source. Suddenly, he realized something and looked up. He saw the huge sphere of Chitauri soldiers in the sky, vibrating continuously. That buzzing sound was coming from there. Chen Haitian was puzzled. But suddenly, a glimmer of hope and light flashed in his eyes. Could it be? Loki saw it too. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. He sneered, "Are they killing Sun Wukong?" Haha. Hearing this, Chen Haitian shuddered. Is this killing Sun Wukong? He had no idea of Sun Wukong's condition, nor did he know much about the Chitauri army, so he just assumed what Loki said was just a random thought. Instantly, the hope and light in his eyes vanished. Suddenly, something strange happened. The tremors of the sphere grew stronger, and so did the buzzing sound. It felt like a bomb about to explode. And in fact, that description was more or less the same. At that moment, a burst of red light erupted from the cracks in the sphere. The tremors grew stronger, until the frequency was indiscernible even to the naked eye. Bang! Suddenly, with a resounding explosion, the sphere exploded like a bomb. Numerous Chitauri soldiers and aircraft were flung away like shrapnel, flying in all directions. The scene was truly spectacular. The Chitauri soldiers screamed in agony, unable to control their movements. Bang! 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 Some slammed into the golden shield like meteorites. The soldiers were fine, suffering only broken bones and limbs at best. Their aircraft, however, exploded directly. But for the golden shield, their impact only caused ripples like water, otherwise, nothing happened. For a moment, the scene was awe-inspiring. At the center of the sphere, a fiery red flame shone. Then, the flames vanished, revealing the form of Sun Wukong. Seeing this, all the survivors gasped, their eyes filled with shock. In the next instant, everyone reacted, erupting in excited and enthusiastic cheers. Great! Sun Wukong isn't dead. He's still alive, woohoo, great, ha ha ha, I knew he wouldn't die so easily, go Sun Wukong, the survivors shouted. A wave of hope and excitement spread through the crowd, dispelling the previous despair and panic. Even the Chitauri soldiers, who had received orders to continue attacking the city, paused in astonishment at this scene. Chen Haitian also stared at the scene in shock, unable to believe his eyes. The next moment, he realized what was happening and became excited. Great! Sun Wukong is still alive, but suddenly, in the midst of his excitement, a thought struck him. He turned to look at Loki, a strange look in his eyes. He remembered that the culprit had said before that these alien soldiers were killing Sun Wukong. Loki's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he stared at the scene in disbelief. At the same time, he felt a sense of slap in the face. He had thought Sun Wukong was being killed, but unexpectedly, he had broken free. Loki gritted his teeth, his rage boiling. He raised his scepter and shouted angrily, "Everyone outside, come on. Kill him. Kill him." Loki's murderous intent towards Sun Wukong had reached its peak, and he even shouted "kill him" twice. Such a lowly creature dared to provoke him so repeatedly? What a fool. Boom boom boom, a vast army of Chitauri soldiers rushed towards Lin Feng, accompanied by numerous giant mechanical worms. For a moment, the sky was filled with a vast Chitauri army, blackening out the sun as it rushed towards Lin Feng. Loki sneered angrily, "Your strength is inadequate. I have so many Chitauri soldiers at my disposal, I can wear you down." Loki had no other thoughts but this: when Sun Wukong's strength was exhausted, that would be his death. Chen Haitian was horrified, his heart pounding. He hadn't noticed there were so many alien soldiers. Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he turned to look at the azure beam of light in the distance. That space tunnel keeps pouring out alien soldiers. If we don't shut it down, there'll be a constant influx of reinforcements. Sooner or later, Sun Wukong will give up. Damn it. We have to shut that thing down, Chen Haitian fretted. But then he thought, there was no way. Forget getting through now. Even if he could get to the space device, what good would that do? Even a super genius like Tony couldn't shut it down. What else could he do? Lin Feng, seeing the Chitauri army charging at him, showed no fear. He even guessed Loki's intention. He'd been tricked, hoping to win by relying on a series of battles to exhaust his own strength. Lin Feng wanted to laugh, but on the surface, he mimicked Sun Wukong's tone and said, "Come on. You bunch of monsters, let me show you Grandpa Sun's methods." "Change," Lin Feng roared, swung his golden cudgel, and then rammed it into the air. But even though it was hitting the air, it made a dull thud sound. Then, he plucked a handful of monkey hair and blew it toward the oncoming Chitauri army. Whoosh, it was merely a puff, but a sudden, violent wind blew. In the gust of wind, the monkey hair flashed a fiery red, transforming into the image of Sun Wukong. And there were so many of them, it was impossible to count them. Seeing this scene, all the survivors were utterly shocked. Chapter 45, Chaos Everywhere. The Chitauri army is like chickens and dogs. Chapter 45, a chaotic battle spreads across the sky, and the Chitauri army is as helpless as chickens and dogs. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 45, a chaotic battle spreads across the sky, and the Chitauri army is as helpless as chickens and dogs. Hiss, everyone was shocked, looking at the monkey kings everywhere, unable to believe this scene was real. Immediately, they were filled with excitement and excitement. Holy crap! So many monkey kings, clones. These are clones, right? The comics and movies have come true. Awesome, shocking. So shocking, ha ha ha, with so many clones, they should be able to defeat these aliens, right? Discussions raged. Everyone was excited and excited. What is going on? Chen Haitian was also excited. This scene was truly unexpected. With so many clones, they should be able to deal with these alien soldiers, right? Chen Haitian said expectantly. But then he remembered something and said, but the most important thing right now is that space tunnel device. I hope Sun Wukong can find a way to shut it down. Chen Haitian frowned and looked in the direction of the azure beam. That black hole was still emitting a steady stream of alien soldiers. It had to be shut down. Hiss, Ancient One gasped, a look of shock on his face. Among his magic, he also possessed a clone spell. However, he couldn't create so many clones. Furthermore, he sensed that each of Sun Wukong's clones possessed immense combat power. It wasn't simply a matter of creating multiple individuals. This was far more advanced than his magical clones. Sure enough, these people possessed a power far beyond magic. But what exactly is this power? Ancient One was deeply curious. He couldn't understand this power, but he could sense its antiquity and mystery, far more profound than magic. So many Sun Wukongs. Thor's face was filled with shock, unable to believe his eyes. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. There were still so many Sun Wukongs. So densely packed, so numerous, it was impossible to count them. Thor was stunned. On the returning aerospace carrier, Nick and Captain America were both stunned by the display on the tablet, unable to believe it. What kind of miracle is this? Captain America exclaimed in amazement. He once again wondered if he hadn't been exhumed yet. Otherwise, why did it feel like the world had become like this after so many decades? Nick didn't know Captain America was doubting reality again. But he, too, felt incredible. At the same time, he felt a sense of relief. He had originally planned to take advantage of China's misfortune, but now it seemed fortunate that he had escaped quickly. If Sun Wukong had used this move, he would have been discovered. He wouldn't have had time to escape then, and he would have mistaken him for an alien and attacked. Loki's face changed drastically, a hint of panic. He hadn't expected Sun Wukong to have such abilities. But then he thought back to what the great scholar Lin Feng had said, and he quickly calmed down. He raised the corner of his mouth and sneered contemptuously, "It's just bluffing, don't resist in vain. I said it before, I have already found out your strength clearly, you are not strong at all, what's the use of you creating so many clones now? They are just vulnerable," Loki said, opening his hands with a look of contempt. But those who saw his reaction were collectively stunned. Geir thought. What is this second prince of Asgard doing? Chen Haitian blinked, confused. But among them, Thor was the most confused. As Loki's brother, Thor thought that Loki had hid his brain. When Lin Feng heard this, he wanted to laugh even more. Loki was completely fooled by himself. But while he thought so, he said, "You're so blind. Sun Wukong, will open your eyes right now." With that, Lin Feng raised his golden cudgel and pointed it at the Chitauri army, shouting, "Kill, ha!" Countless Sun Wukongs, shouting, charged at the Chitauri army. On one side were the Chitauri army, on the other were Lin Feng's clones. For a moment, a chaotic battle ensued. Bang, 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 the Sun Wukong swung their golden cudgels, either blasting aircraft or directly killing the Chitauri soldiers. The Chitauri soldiers, in turn, fired beams of light or rammed their aircraft into the Sun Wukong clones. A dark mass of battle filled the sky, with flashes of fire, and the sounds of bangs, clashes, and screams echoing incessantly. But these were all the screams of the Chitauri soldiers. Moreover, the slain Chitauri soldiers, their limbs, and their destroyed aircraft rained down like rain, all landing on the golden shield. But aside from creating ripples like water, they caused no damage at all. Still, the scene was truly awe-inspiring. Chen Haitian gasped, watching in amazement. Such a shocking and magical scene, he was certain he would never forget it. Meanwhile, several Sun Wukong clones were actually flying straight towards the golden shield. Chen Haitian's pupils constricted. Oh no, this golden shield was created by the Buddha's phantom to ward off the alien soldiers. Would Sun Wukong's clones, now flying towards it, be crashing right into it? But just as he was about to warn them, he saw something startling. Sun Wukong's clones had effortlessly passed through the transparent golden shield, not even colliding with it. What the hell? Chen Haitian's mind froze. But suddenly, he realized that if it was Sun Wukong summoned by Tathagata Buddha, how could the golden shield he had created stop him? Realizing this, he couldn't help but marvel once again at the miraculous power of this ability. It could actually distinguish friend from foe. Loki's eyes nearly popped out at this sight. He'd expected Sun Wukong's clone to collide with him, even somewhat anticipating it. But it didn't happen. Instead it breezed in. Damn it, Loki cursed inwardly. He immediately ordered the Chitauri soldiers to fly away in their aircraft. Sun Wukong's clone must be coming here to confront the Chitauri soldiers in the city. I can't confront him head-on. I have to hide and wait until he's exhausted, Loki thought to himself. Whoosh, Loki flew away. Chen Haitian watched, his eyes filled with confusion. After Sun Wukong's clones entered the golden shield, they scattered, searching for the Chitauri soldiers. A group of people were being chased by several Chitauri soldiers. They were panicked, screaming for help in fear and running around. The Chitauri soldiers were chasing them, screaming and firing beams of light, but they missed them, as if playing a joke. Suddenly, a fiery red light flew over one of the Chitauri soldiers and transformed into a clone of Sun Wukong. Then, with a club, it brought down, with a bang, the Chitauri soldier's head shattered and blood splattered. Then it quickly approached another Chitauri soldier and swept it across, sending it flying like a cannonball into a distant wall, killing it instantly. Then it approached another Chitauri soldier and killed him as well. In the blink of an eye, a single Sun Wukong clone had wiped out several Chitauri soldiers. Chapter 46 Sun Wukong vs. the Giant Mechanical Worm. Chapter 46 Sun Wukong vs. Giant Mechanical Worm, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 46 Sun Wukong vs. Giant Mechanical Worm. Sun Wukong's clone didn't stop and quickly turned into a stream of fiery red light and flew away. The people who were rescued were stunned and hadn't reacted yet. After a few seconds, they came to their senses and immediately became excited and grateful. Great! We are saved, thank you Sun Wukong. Wow, we are finally saved, Sun Wukong is really amazing. On Chen Haitian's side, the Chitauri soldiers attacked them again. They didn't have much ammunition to begin with, so they could only hide in the house. Damn it, Chen Haitian gritted his teeth as he looked at the aliens in the sky outside who were madly firing beams of attack. Sun Wukong's clones are already here. Once they get here, you're finished. Suddenly, at that moment, a fiery red streak of light flew in, transforming into Sun Wukong's clones. With a few bangs, they dispatched the alien soldiers. Then, they transformed into another streak of light and flew away. Chen Haitian was stunned upon seeing this. Then, excitement immediately grew. Thor was surrounded by a large number of Chitauri soldiers. Although he was powerful with Mjolnir, he was no match for the Chitauri's sheer numbers. Every time Thor killed one, another immediately followed. After a fierce battle, the area around him was littered with Chitauri corpses and flying vehicles. However, the Chitauri continued to charge in droves. Damn it, Thor cursed inwardly. Suddenly, Two streaks of light descended, transforming into Sun Wukong's clones. They attacked the Chitauri soldiers, one by one, like fallen leaves swept by an autumn wind, quickly dispatching them. Thor's face was filled with surprise at this scene. He hadn't taken action just now, letting the two Wukong clones take care of everything. Suddenly, Thor remembered something, and he immediately watched the Wukong clones with nervous vigilance. He had encountered Wukong before, but it hadn't been a good encounter. Wukong had thrown away his Mjolnir, so he worried that Wukong would attack him. But he was obviously overthinking it. Wukong's clones didn't even glance at him. They waved their golden cudgel behind them, then leaped into the air and disappeared in a stream of light. Thor felt ignored. Ancient One was protecting the Xiangjiang temple from the Chitauri army. He was doing it with ease, not even struggling. But suddenly, 3 fiery red lights flew in, transforming into 3 Wukong clones. With a few bangs, they dispatched the Chitauri army around them. Then, they all exchanged a glance with Ancient One before disintegrating into streams of light and flying away. With just one glance, Ancient One saw something ancient and mysterious in Sun Wukong's eyes. This something shocked him. "Tao," Ancient One muttered uncontrollably. But suddenly, he realized what was happening and immediately became confused. Why did he say that? What was Tao? Beyond these few places, everywhere else in the city, wherever the Chitauri soldiers were, the same scene was playing out. Sun Wukong's clones searched for the Chitauri soldiers in all directions and destroyed them. The survivors cheered and danced excitedly. "Go Sun Wukong, woo woo woo, we're saved, damn aliens, you're done, woo woo woo, my mother is dead, I don't have a mother anymore." Bang, bang, bang. In the sky, Sun Wukong's clones and the Chitauri army engaged in a fierce melee. The sound of collisions and the strange cries and screams of the Chitauri soldiers were endless. Lin Feng watched this scene with a smile on his face. Immediately, he looked in another direction. Over there, a pillar of azure light connected to the sky, creating a black hole. A vast stream of Chitauri soldiers flew out of the black hole. "We have to go destroy that," Lin Feng said without hesitation. With a loud boom, he soared towards the azure pillar of light. Chen Haitian, observing this, immediately realized what Lin Feng was planning. He grew excited. Sun Wukong is flying over there now. Could he be able to shut down that space tunnel device? Loki, hiding, observed this scene with a startled expression. While he wasn't sure Sun Wukong could shut down the space tunnel device, he didn't dare take any chances. He quickly ordered the Chitauri soldiers to stop Sun Wukong. Boom boom boom, a swarm of Chitauri soldiers and 4 or 5 giant mechanical worms flew towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng shouted, "Can a few of you monsters stop me?" Lin Feng didn't say anything more. With a roar of fury, he raised his golden cudgel and lashed out. With a loud bang, the cudgel struck a Chitauri soldier on the head, instantly killing him. However, the immense force applied to the aircraft, sending it plummeting. Lin Feng tightened his grip on the cudgel and swung it, sending another Chitauri soldier flying with a loud bang. Just then, a giant mechanical worm charged forward. Its size was enormous, ferocious, and terrifying, its entire body imbued with the weight of heavy metal. "Come on, you soulless monster," Lin Feng shouted, breaking through the air with a boom and charging forward. But just as they were about to collide, Lin Feng vanished with a swish, appearing to the right of the mechanical worm. Lin Feng raised his cudgel and slammed it down into the giant worm's waist. With a resounding bang, the mechanical worm was shattered in two by Lin Feng. Then, as if losing its momentum, it plummeted downwards. With a loud bang, it slammed into the golden shield, creating massive ripples before exploding and sending flames soaring into the sky. However, it had no effect on the golden shield. Hiss, Chen Haitian gasped at the sight. He had seen the power of this giant mechanical worm before. It could rip a hole through a tall building, collapsing it. Before it, the building was like a pile of tofu. Yet, it was cleaved in two by a single blow from Sun Wukong's club. This was truly astonishing. Sure enough, a war beyond human combat capabilities requires those beyond that level to fight, Chen Haitian thought to himself. Loki was also surprised. But he remained calm and confident. Boom, Lin Feng charged at another mechanical worm. But then, a large number of Chitauri soldiers rushed over. Lin Feng gripped his golden cudgel tightly, dispatching each one with his blow. The sound of bangs continued. Soon, Lin Feng had annihilated the surrounding Chitauri soldiers. But just then, A giant mechanical worm flew over and wrapped itself around Lin Feng. It then began to shrink, as if trying to crush him with its iron frame. Seeing this, the survivors' faces changed. Ha ha ha, Loki roared with laughter. He felt that Lin Feng would be unable to escape and would be crushed. But Lin Feng remained calm, mocking him with a sneer. Monster. Do you think you can subdue me like this? Ah. How? Lin Feng gathered his strength, then roared with a powerful roar. With a bang, the giant mechanical worm's body was torn into several pieces by the aura, and the force sent it flying in all directions. Chapter 47 The Chitauri Mothership Arrives. Chapter 47 The Chitauri Mothership Arrives, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 47 The Chitauri Mothership Arrives. Lin Feng stood in midair, a fiery red light emanating from his body, like a small sun. Everyone was stunned by this scene, especially Loki. Loki couldn't believe his eyes. He's actually fine. The light around Lin Feng vanished. Without pausing, he continued to fly towards the azure beam. Boom boom boom, several more giant mechanical worms and a large number of Chitauri soldiers rushed over, trying to stop Lin Feng from approaching the space tunnel device. But Lin Feng shouted loudly, brandishing his golden cudgel, and met them. Bang boom boom, the golden cudgel swung, destroying each Chitauri soldier with one blow. Even against the giant mechanical worm, 2 or 3 blows would be enough to destroy it. There was no way to stop him. He watched as Lin Feng drew closer and closer to the azure beam. Chen Haitian's excitement grew. If we can shut down that space tunnel device, Sun Wukong will surely take care of the remaining aliens in no time. I hope he succeeds. Chen Haitian was actually unsure. This was a technological matter, and Sun Wukong clearly wasn't one of them. Even a super genius like Tony couldn't shut down this space tunnel device. So, he wasn't sure Lin Feng could actually do it. Seeing this, Loki, previously calm and confident, became nervous and uneasy. He began to sense something was amiss. However, he felt Sun Wukong couldn't shut down the space tunnel device. After all, Thor had just tried to shut it down with force, but it had no effect. Thor had just smashed the space tunnel device with Mjolnir, but the Tesseract's power had deflected it, leaving the device intact. Bang, 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 Lin Feng rushed towards the azure beam. Numerous Chitauri soldiers and giant mechanical worms tried to stop him, but he defeated them all. By this time, the sky was already raining down corpses of Chitauri soldiers, broken limbs, wrecked aircraft, and giant mechanical worms. Boom, 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 but just then, a series of roars drowned out the sounds of battle, echoing in all directions. Everyone heard it and was startled. What is that sound? I don't know, holy crap. It sounds like it's coming from that black hole, it really is. Is there another danger, huh? No way, we just escaped danger, don't worry, Sun Wukong is here, he'll definitely protect us. By this time, the Chitauri soldiers in the city had been largely wiped out by Lin Feng's clones. But the sudden sound from the black hole made everyone nervous again, fearing another danger. However, some felt that Sun Wukong was here. Even if danger came again, he would protect us. Boom, 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 the humming sound grew louder, as if the entire sky was filled with the same sound, several times louder than the sound of a low-flying plane. Suddenly, someone saw something, their face changing dramatically, as if they'd witnessed something shocking. Everyone, look over there. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone looked over. Suddenly, panic erupted. In the distance, a massive black hole opened up from the azure beam of light, revealing a massive black metallic horn. Everyone was stunned, in disbelief. What is that? I don't know. But it seems like more and more are coming out, holy crap. It looks like an alien spaceship, not just an illusion, it's real, oh my god, holy crap. Is it this big? It's over. With a spaceship this big, we humans are finished, don't be afraid, Sun Wukong is here, the exclamations continued. Everyone's faces were filled with panic and disbelief. Half of the Chitauri spaceship had already been revealed. Even this half was so enormous it felt overwhelming. Everyone was on edge. Hiss, Chen Haitian gasped, his face filled with shock and a wave of unease. Even the spaceships have descended. Is this a last-ditch effort, or is there another way to deal with Sun Wukong? Chen Haitian thought uneasily. However, either scenario was bad. Ha ha ha, Loki, upon seeing this, burst into laughter. The mothership has arrived, Sun Wukong, now I see how you'll die. The mothership was equipped with numerous powerful weapons. If it descended upon Earth, Sun Wukong would undoubtedly die, and the Earth would be destroyed. Boom boom boom, most of the Chitauri spaceships descended. Seeing this, Lin Feng thought to himself, even the motherships have descended? Okay, watch me smash you to pieces. Lin Feng thought so. But he was now playing Sun Wukong, so he had to speak from his perspective. He shouted angrily, "Hey! Another soulless monster has arrived. Let me show you my power." With that, Lin Feng roared, his entire body radiating a fiery red light, his cloak rustling behind him. Then, with a bang, he burst through the air, hurtling towards the Chitauri spaceship at breakneck speed. As he flew, he transformed into a streak of fiery red light, emitting a continuous fiery aura. The Chitauri soldiers and giant mechanical worms ahead of him attempted to intercept him. But as they approached, they were instantly blasted to death by the fiery red aura he emitted. Bang, 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 Lin Feng transformed into a stream of light, soaring at breakneck speed. The explosions from the Chitauri army followed in a continuous line. Everyone watching this scene was collectively stunned. At the same time, they understood Lin Feng's intention. He was going to destroy the spaceship. Chen Haitian's heart was filled with anxiety. He stared at the scene intently, not daring to blink. Loki was also extremely nervous, his hands sweating as he gripped his scepter. Bang! The next moment, Lin Feng transformed into a stream of light, crashing into the azure beam and plunging forcefully into the spaceship, emitting a deafening roar. Crash! Crash! Everyone was stunned, unable to believe their eyes. Immediately, flames began to erupt from all over the spaceship, as if its interior was being destroyed. Bang! 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 Immediately, explosions rang out. Multiple parts of the spaceship were ablaze. Seeing this, everyone came to their senses and immediately danced with joy. Ha ha ha! Sun Wukong is so powerful. Destroy. Destroy as hard as you can. That just scared me. I told you, Sun Wukong would definitely protect us. Ha ha ha! A spaceship is useless. It's nothing compared to absolute power. Everyone excitedly discussed it. But suddenly, with a bang, an explosion louder than the previous ones rang out, and a huge piece of the ship was blown away. Flames shot up into the sky, revealing the interior of the spaceship. But the flames were so blazing that nothing could be seen clearly. However, the spaceship tilted and seemed to be about to collapse. But half of it was still in the universe. Seeing this scene, everyone's mouths opened wide, their faces full of surprise. Oh my god! This spaceship looks like it's going to collapse. It really is. Ha ha ha! Sun Wukong is so powerful. He actually caused such a huge damage. Incredible. This is simply incredible. Oh my god, is this spaceship really going to collapse? No way, isn't half of it still on the other side of the black hole? Chapter 48, the space battleship hits the golden shield, the situation is critical. Chapter 48, the battleship collided with a golden shield, the situation was critical. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 48, the battleship collided with a golden shield, the situation was critical. Bang! Suddenly, a fiery red light shot out from beneath the battleship, hurtling towards the space tunnel device below at breakneck speed. Seeing this movement, the chattering crowd fell silent, stunned. For a moment, no one could react. Chen Haitian was also stunned. But the next second, he reacted, a look of surprise in his eyes. Is he going to shut down the space tunnel device? But how is he going to do it? Chen Haitian wondered. Suddenly, he realized something, gasped, and a look of surprise crossed his face. Loki, stunned by the sight of Lin Feng's powerful destruction of the battleship, was stunned and terrified. Suddenly, he saw the scene before him, and his eyes widened in shock again. What is he trying to do? Thor also gasped, realizing something. Boom boom boom, a fiery red light shot down from above, reaching the top of the space tunnel device and transforming back into Lin Feng. Lin Feng roared, raised his golden cudgel, and slammed it down. Bang! A resounding explosion. The space tunnel device instantly exploded, and simultaneously, a wave of azure air rapidly spread in all directions. A sonic boom echoed as it spread. Fragments of the space tunnel device were also scattered in all directions along with the azure air. The scene was awe-inspiring. Everyone was stunned by this scene, their minds shutting down. At that moment, it felt as if the entire world had fallen silent. A few seconds later, as the space tunnel device was destroyed, the azure light column vanished. The black hole had lost its propulsion power and was gradually shrinking. As it shrank, the Chitauri spaceship was squeezed, causing a continuous rumbling noise. Finally, with a loud bang, the spaceship suddenly broke apart, and flames shot up into the sky. The spaceships in the other part of space were invisible due to the black hole blocking the view, and their situation was unknown. However, in the part of the spaceships on Earth, flames erupted from every part, and explosions could be seen and heard. Meanwhile, numerous Chitauri soldiers leaped from the spaceships, attempting to escape. Boom, 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 the flaming half of the spaceship plummeted downward. Although only half, it was still immense, obscuring the sky as it fell. In the city, the survivors, upon witnessing the scene, were horrified and disoriented. Some were so frightened that they collapsed to the ground, faces filled with terror and despair. It's over, run for your lives, save us, someone save us, run. Run. Run, where the hell can we escape to with a spaceship this big? Exactly, then what should we do? Don't panic, don't we have that golden transparent light shield created by the phantom above us? Maybe it can block the impact of this spaceship, huh? Can it block it? Yes, can it? It's only half a spaceship, but it's huge. Panic and anxiety spread through the crowd. However, there were still some people who believed that this golden transparent light shield should be able to block the impact of the falling half of the spaceship. Chen Haitian took a breath, his face full of panic and anxiety. He had not expected this to happen. But suddenly, a thought struck him, and he said, I wonder if this transparent golden shield can block it. If the golden shield couldn't stop it, then a massive spaceship would crash down, completely destroying Hong Kong City, and all survivors would perish. Moreover, the sheer force of the impact could trigger tsunamis, earthquakes, and other disasters, impacting the mainland. In short, the consequences would be dire. Loki's pupils shrank, and his face paled. His mind was blank, his mind a blank, filled with a single thought, it's all over. With a massive spaceship crashing down, he wouldn't even have anywhere to hide. Aboard the aerospace carrier, Nick and Captain America were equally shocked and shaken by the scene. They felt that Hong Kong City was doomed. And, once again, they realized that their earlier decision to return home was a clear decision, otherwise, it would have been too dangerous. Boom, 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 as everyone tensed, the sound of the crashing spaceship grew louder and closer. Finally, with a loud bang, far louder than any other sound in the world, the spaceship crashed down without a trace, crashing down onto the golden shield. Everyone instinctively closed their eyes, afraid to watch the aftermath. All they could hear was the roar of massive explosions and the roar of flames. It was unknown how much time had passed. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Holy crap!" Look, this remark set off a chain reaction, and everyone looked up at the sky. But their faces immediately dropped in disbelief at what they saw. The golden, transparent shield in the sky remained intact. Half of the alien spaceship had crashed into the shield, creating only ripples. Instead, the immense force of the impact had left the ship in even greater disarray, shattering it into a horrific state. Then, half of the ship began to slide down the slope of the golden shield. Finally, with a resounding roar, it sank into the sea. Perhaps in years to come, this ship will surpass the Titanic in fame. The survivors watched, stunned and incredulous. It took them a few seconds to react, then they burst into cheers and dances of joy. Ha ha ha. It's okay. It's okay. Amazing. This is truly amazing. Holy crap, that really scared me. I thought it was over. Ha ha ha. It's okay. Wow, wow, great. I survived. A chorus of enthusiastic and excited voices filled the air. Some were overjoyed, some hugged each other, tears welling in their eyes at having escaped death, and some danced with joy. But others, sobbing, dug through the rubble, calling out the names of their loved ones buried beneath. Chen Haitian's face was filled with emotion, tears streaming down his face, his fists clenched. I survived. Chen Haitian hadn't expected the golden light shield to withstand the impact of the space battleship intact. He had also never expected Lin Feng's violent smashing of the space tunnel device. This also shocked him. Lin Feng actually used this method to shut down the space tunnel device. Thor was completely stunned. Then, he reacted and took a breath. Incredible, this golden light shield actually blocked it. Just at that moment, he thought in his mind that if the golden light shield broke, he would use Mjolnir to quickly leave here. And he just smashed the thing with one stick, but I was bounced away by it. How strong is he? Thor said to himself. Loki was stunned, his mind blank. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. He actually felt a sense of relief in his heart. Immediately, he quickly shook his head and didn't think about it. He looked up at the Monkey King in the sky again. At this moment, he finally realized something and said in surprise, "Scholar Lin Feng, the information is wrong. This Monkey King is very powerful." Chapter 49, Resurrect Them All. Chapter 49 Resurrect Them All, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 49 Resurrect Them All. Lin Feng stood on the air, the fiery red cloak behind him fluttering in the wind, like a dancing flame. Solved. Lin Feng raised the corner of his mouth. At this moment, he remembered something and looked in a certain direction. After a pause, he said in the tone of Sun Wukong, "There is still a monster. I almost forgot about it. How can I let you escape?" After that, Lin Feng held the golden hoop in his left hand, then raised his right hand and grasped the air. A stick with golden light appeared out of thin air. Lin Feng threw it lightly in the direction he had just looked at. Swoosh! The golden stick flew away at a high speed. It soon disappeared. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Did an alien escape? At this moment, as the space battleship was destroyed, the surviving Chitauri soldiers and the giant mechanical worm seemed to be affected by something. The former's life force instantly vanished, while the latter seemed to lose its power. Both fell from the sky. Bang, 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 like hail, they slammed into the golden light shield with a dull thud, sending ripples through the air. Soon, the sky was empty of Chitauri soldiers, leaving only Sun Wukong's clones. Seeing this, Lin Feng reached out and grabbed at the clones. Instantly, all of Sun Wukong's clones flew towards them, including those inside the golden light shield. As they flew, they transformed back into monkey hair and flew into Lin Feng's hands. Lin Feng gathered the monkey hair. The survivors looked up at the sky. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly, as if everything that had just happened was just an illusion. But the surrounding rubble and devastation, with corpses one after another, seemed to prove that it was not an illusion. For some, the joy of surviving the disaster quickly faded, and they began mourning the dead. Others, whose loved ones had died, wailed uncontrollably. Others, weeping, dug through the rubble, trying to dig out their loved ones. Children, their parents dead, stood by the roadside, weeping uncontrollably. A wave of sadness and grief spread throughout the city. After Chen Haitian's elation faded, he too realized this. His face was filled with sorrow, but there was nothing he could do. After all, the dead cannot be brought back to life. This disaster is truly immense. Xiangjiang City is essentially destroyed, Chen Haitian muttered to himself. Lin Feng gazed at the devastated city below and heard the voices of the people within. He moved, flying towards the shadowy figure of Tathagata Buddha, arriving before it. The survivors were stunned by this scene. What was Sun Wukong going to do? Curious and puzzled, they all stared. Lin Feng stared at the enormous shadowy figure of Tathagata Buddha before him. He could directly control the phantom of the Tathagata Buddha. However, he was currently impersonating Sun Wukong. Furthermore, Sun Wukong and the Tathagata Buddha were presented to the world as two separate characters. Therefore, he had to speak from Sun Wukong's perspective. He hefted his golden cudgel onto his shoulder and explained the situation. Tathagata Buddha, I've already vanquished all the monsters, but I can't do anything about the dead mortals. Please, be kind and resurrect them all. Upon hearing this, the survivors were collectively shocked. What? They looked at the Tathagata Buddha's phantom. From Lin Feng's words, they knew this golden figure was called the Tathagata Buddha. But could he really resurrect the dead? Everyone was in disbelief and restless. Chen Haitian stared at the Tathagata Buddha's phantom in shock. He didn't quite believe it either. But Sun Wukong had said so. Long after Lin Feng finished speaking, the survivors stared at the phantom in silence, feeling nervous and excited, yet also a little anxious, worried that such a thing was impossible. As expected, the golden shadow remained silent. Everyone began to despair. Really, how could such a thing be possible? They were dead, there was no way they could be resurrected. But just then, the Tathagata Buddha finally spoke. Amitabha. You monkey, don't worry, I will resurrect them, thank you, Lin Feng said with a smile. Actually, he had also controlled the Tathagata Buddha's shadowy voice just now. But now, in front of the world, he had to pretend it was Sun Wukong talking to the Tathagata Buddha. But upon hearing the conversation, the survivors were stunned, unable to believe their ears. They agreed, holy crap, is this really possible? I don't know, outrageous, people were buzzing. Resurrecting the dead was unbelievable. As the Tathagata Buddha's shadowy voice finished its words, waves of Buddhist chanting emanated, like countless voices chanting sutras, quickly spreading in all directions. For a moment, the entire world was filled with a Buddhist chanting. Upon hearing this Buddhist chant, people felt a sudden sense of peace and tranquility. Their emotions, which had been surging, were soothed. What's that sound? Yes, it's calming. Yeah, it also gives me a pleasant feeling. Everyone, look up at the sky. The golden shield is about to disappear. As these words were spoken, everyone looked to the sky. They saw the golden shield grow increasingly transparent, until it completely vanished, along with the swastika. After the golden shield vanished, lotus flowers began to bloom on the devastated city ground. These lotus flowers bloomed rapidly, vibrant with life. And after blooming, tiny specks of golden light emanated from the flowers, drifting in all directions. Under the Buddhist chant, the lotus flowers bloomed in ever-increasing numbers, and the tiny specks of golden light grew in number. They drifted across the ruined city. On the ground, a corpse lay, and tiny specks of golden light fell upon it. The wounds on the corpse healed at a visible speed, until they were completely healed. After a few seconds, the corpse stirred, finally lifting itself up with its hands. I'm not dead? What the hell is going on? He didn't understand. He remembered being dead. And the scene was playing out across the city. Some were buried beneath the rubble. But with a boom, giant lotus flowers sprouted from the ruins, their buds opening to reveal the very people buried within. They stared in amazement, wondering what had happened. They were clearly dead, so how could they still be alive? Others were injured, but not dead. But after being struck by tiny specks of golden light, their wounds visibly healed. In seconds, they healed, leaving no scars. The dead had been resurrected. After those around them explained the situation, they understood what had happened. They hugged their loved ones and wept with joy. Some hugged their children, parents, and so on. For a moment, they were immersed in the joy of their loved ones' return to life. Yet, they were also filled with shock. The dead could actually be resurrected. It was no wonder. They knew nothing of myths and legends, and naturally, they had no idea of the possibility of resurrection from the dead, nor did they understand the significance of the Tathagata Buddha. After sharing their excitement and joy with their loved ones, they all knelt before the Buddha's shadow, kowtowed, and passionately expressed their gratitude. Thank you, Sun Wukong. Thank you, Tathagata Buddha. Thank you, Sun Wukong. Thank you, Tathagata Buddha. 212. Chapter 211 Instigation. 212. Chapter 211, Instigation 2024-1103 Author, Good Monster Chapter 211, Instigation But I'm not my father. I don't believe in fairy tales, much less tranquility. As long as humans exist, their selfish desires will drive them to endless evil. Natasha vaguely understood the hidden meaning in T'Challa's words. T'Chaka might have died in a terrorist attack by the Huaxia cult or an anti-cult movement. His father's lenient attitude might have allowed no further action, but T'Challa was young and promising, and he tended to fight violence with violence. Considering the Winter Soldier's brutal killer, Natasha couldn't help but worry about him. She hurriedly advised, T'Challa, I understand your feelings, but the UN task force will decide who will capture the Winter Soldier. You don't have to risk it yourself. T'Challa stood up. He knew Natasha was concerned for her own safety, but he was determined. He stared at Natasha. Ms. Romanoff, don't bother. I will deal with him myself. Natasha was distraught at T'Challa's resolute back. At this moment, she received a call from Lin Feng. Professor Lin Feng, have you seen the news? Natasha couldn't help but ask. It's hard not to watch it. It's being broadcast live around the world, and such a heavy loss of life is truly heartbreaking. By the way, are you and Ms. Hashimoto okay? Natasha shook her head. We're fine, but we detected the presence of Kree at the venue, but there were too many people on site to confirm their identities. Also, this terrorist attack could have been launched by them, or by someone else. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and then Lin Feng's calm voice came. Okay, I understand, please continue. Although his tone was calm, Natasha felt a chill on her back, sensing endless murderous intent. Natasha thought of T'Challa again and reported to Lin Feng. Professor Lin Feng, T'Challa, the heir to the throne of Wakanda, seems to have determined that Barnes is the murderer and intends to hunt him down with all his might. Lin Feng paused and sighed. That's truly unfortunate. Yes, Natasha lamented. The Winter Soldier is, after all, a top-tier assassin. T'Challa might not be able to deal with him, even though he's the ruler of a nation. I'm very worried about his safety, Natasha. Lin Feng's voice turned serious. If T'Challa really wants to go after the Winter Soldier, you should be worried about him. T'Challa himself is a superpowered warrior. If he uses Wakanda's resources, Barnes will be in grave danger. Natasha was speechless. She didn't know much about T'Challa's background, but Lin Feng had told her about Barnes long ago. He was a close friend of Roger's, but he had been used by Hydra to commit many evil deeds. Now that Hydra has been destroyed, Barnes seems to have turned over a new leaf. Rogers, meanwhile, was searching for his best friend in Eastern Europe, and it was unknown whether he had found him. Thinking of this, Natasha hurriedly said, Professor, Barnes should still be in Eastern Europe. Not a government official, he doesn't have permission to open the teleportation channel, so he can only fly to Vienna. But he's clearly too late now. It would take at least half a day to fly from Eastern Europe. So, Professor Lin, is there someone else responsible? Lin Feng said confidently, it's definitely someone else. Whether it's the Kree is uncertain, but they're definitely involved. Natasha, thank you for your hard work. Please move around and stay in touch with the various delegations, especially the U.S. diplomatic mission. I'll be there right away. Natasha sensed the gravity of the situation from Lin Feng's tone and immediately stood up, preparing to find an excuse to approach the other delegations. Ms. Hashimoto, please come over and help. There seems to be some traffic here, a nearby staff member called out to Hashimoto Kanayu. Sweat beads beaded on Hashimoto Kanzuki's forehead, and she was still panting as she headed towards the sound. However, halfway through, alarm bells rang in her heart as the Kree detection equipment began to sound, indicating that she might be entering a Kree gathering place. Maintaining composure, Hashimoto Kanzuki hurriedly straightened her clothes and headed towards the source of the sound, which was the headquarters of the U.S. government's diplomatic mission. She wondered if the U.S. government's top brass might have been infiltrated by the Kree, but she remained calm on the surface. Recalling Lin Feng's special instructions after he rescued her, Hashimoto Kanzuki, though nervous, remained calm on the surface. Lin Feng had asked her to act as a double agent, ostensibly gathering intelligence for the Kree, but in reality, spying on them and reporting back to the Avengers. Consequently, she had become close to Natasha, learning from her the essential qualities of a spy. Even for the signing ceremony, originally intended for Natasha alone, Hashimoto Kanzuki seized the opportunity and came with her. As she reached the U.S. diplomatic compound, before she could even stand, a voice rang out in her ear, Lamer, you haven't contacted us in a long time, since we last sent you to lurk beside Lin Feng. After capturing the Kree, Stark and Senna had collaborated to replicate all of Leimu's equipment and apply it to Hashimoto Kanayu. With Lin Feng's help, Hashimoto Kanayu's genetic sequence became identical to Leimu's, allowing the Kree to identify her only as one of their own. Lin Feng used his divine power to create a replacement for Hashimoto Kanayu where she was bound, so the Kree hadn't yet discovered the flaw. The real Leimu, while still alive, was nearing death, having lost her consciousness. She was fixed to the experimental bed, acting as a matrix for a reaction generator, synchronously sensing the external information Hashimoto Kanayu was receiving. Upon receiving relevant information from the Kree, the machine would stimulate Leimu's nervous system, generating corresponding feedback to simulate Leimu's reaction upon encountering a companion. This feedback was then synchronized to Hashimoto Kanayu, helping her respond to the Kree's inquiries. Hashimoto Kanzuki smiled faintly and responded, there's nothing we can do. There seems to be an energy shield within the Avengers, blocking all communication. I can't contact you at all. The leading U.S. ambassador stared at her. Okay, we've confirmed this. The Avengers' internal shield appears to be extremely powerful, and even our space jump technology hasn't been able to force a breakthrough. While Blue Star's overall technological level is far inferior to ours, some of their top-tier technology is already comparable to ours. Lin Feng was able to gather them all to the Avengers. This Lin Feng is truly remarkable. Upon hearing this, Hashimoto Kanzuki quickly replied, fortunately, the gods of China don't interfere with human development. That said, humanity's top technological talent is only a handful. If we truly compare, our Kree planet is still more advanced. Furthermore, human technology won't advance by leaps and bounds, nor will it achieve a qualitative leap simply due to the gods' favor. The leader sighed. Lamer, you have to understand that once technology reaches this level, it will advance exponentially. We must act now. Okay, now quickly tell us about Lin Feng. Limur hadn't gathered any information on Lin Feng, so all they knew about him was actually from Hashimoto Kenzuki. Of course, some of this information was true, some false, and the goal was to create a false sense of purpose. Ms. Hashimoto, Natasha called from a distance. The leader smiled faintly. Thank you, Ms. Hashimoto, for your hard work. We'll contact you when we have time. Hashimoto Kenzuki smiled faintly. Okay, I understand. Mr. Kazir, I'll contact you when I have the chance. Natasha walked over to Hashimoto Kenzuki. The two exchanged glances, and their general target was confirmed. Natasha couldn't help but sigh, worried about the situation of her old boss, Nick Fury. After the Thanos incident, Lin Feng had established teleportation arrays around the world, enabling long-distance, short-term teleportation. However, currently, only government troops can pass through, and they must apply. The Avengers will also determine whether to allow government troops to pass based on the region's need for assistance. Of course, while the Avengers' own staff don't have open access, they do have the right to pass through at any time. However, to prevent abuse, the transmission channel can only be used in the event of a disaster or other emergency. Lin Feng and some of the Avengers' logistics personnel quickly rushed to Vienna to join the rescue work. The rescue workers, who were originally stretched thin, were able to work more smoothly with the addition of new forces. After Lin Feng handed the work at hand to Hashimoto Kanayu, he was about to go to the U.S. diplomatic mission to find out what was going on, but a voice came from the side. Hello, Professor Lin Feng, I'm Carol, are you interested in chatting? Lin Feng stopped and turned his head to look, only to see a woman with a not very friendly expression standing not far away, staring at him coldly. Lin Feng didn't know where he'd offended her, but he smiled politely. Okay, but can we find another time after we've settled in a bit? Carol folded her arms. Hashimoto Kenzuki is in charge of all the coordination for the Avengers. You're not very busy, Professor Lin Feng. Lin Feng had no choice but to walk over to Carol's side. Then please go ahead. They walked to the side, making sure no one was around. Carol then asked bluntly, Professor Lin Feng, are you aware of the Skrulls? Skrulls? Aren't they the technologically advanced race the Kree have been hunting? It was thanks to the Skrulls' technology that their own rapid technological advancements were possible. And after making further progress, they began to fight back against the Skrulls. Dale had mentioned that the Skrulls' homeworld seemed to have been destroyed, as mentioned when discussing the Kree's origins. Furthermore, the Skrulls' destruction even predated the Krees. They were intelligent beings from the Andromeda Galaxy, and their arrival on Earth was both for refuge and, it seems, for religious reasons. Lin Feng was curious in his heart. Was the destruction of Skrull due to the counterattack of Kree after acquiring technology, or was it the invasion of the God Ego? But he still answered Carol's question, I haven't heard of it. How come, Miss Carol, have you had contact with them? Are they aliens? Carol's expression remained unchanged. Mr. Lin Feng, there is no need to hide it. Just hearing the name, you can tell that the Skrulls are aliens. I have had contact with them, and as far as I know, their home planet has been destroyed, and they are now living in seclusion on Earth in large numbers. However, they did not come to coexist peacefully, but to invade the Earth. Lin Feng chuckled, Miss Carol, you are exaggerating too much? According to what you said, there are a large number of Skrulls living on Earth, which means they have lived here for some time. During this time, the Earth remained safe, with only external crises, and no internal destruction. How do you prove that the Skrulls came to invade the Earth? Carol stared at Lin Feng. I know more about the Skrulls than you do. Their religious prophecies tell them that the blue planet in the Milky Way breeds intelligent life and is the most suitable residence after the Skrulls' destruction. Did they come to the blue planet to live under someone else's roof? Lin Feng frowned slightly. Miss Carol, you are too obsessed with alien creatures. You should know that with the establishment of the space transmission channel, Asgard, the dark planet and the blue star can communicate with each other. They also have people living on the blue star and abide by the laws and rules of the blue star. What's the problem with this? Carol narrowed her eyes. Professor Lin Feng, as far as I know, there is Thor from Asgard in the Avengers, so you should know something about aliens. Lin Feng smiled slightly, resolving the sharpness in Carol's words. At present, it is limited to Asgard, the dark planet and Titan. For the others, I don't ask and they won't say. Carol's patience gradually wore out. Lin Feng had been dealing with her, making her unable to use her strength. She simply said it clearly, "That's enough, Professor Lin Feng, no need to pretend anymore. Supreme Skrull God, I have been looking for you for a long time." Lin Feng was stunned when he heard it. Supreme Skrull God. Carol's attack was already coming towards him, but it failed to shake him at all, because there was a layer of energy shield protecting him. Seeing this, Carol had to stop. "Humph, you have some tricks, but you are not without flaws. Skrull Supreme God, since you appeared, the number of Chinese gods on Blue Star has increased. Do you dare to say that it is not the technology you provided?" Lin Feng looked at Carol, who was on full alert and ready to take action again, raised his hands high, indicating that he had no ill intentions. "Miss Carol, I think you misunderstood. The emergence of Chinese gods is a historical necessity. Even if there is no Lin Feng, there will be others. According to what you said, the Skrull planet has been destroyed. If the Chinese god is the Skrull Supreme God, since he has the ability to resist the invasion of Thanos, how could he let his own planet be destroyed?" Carol was thoughtful after listening, but he remained alert when he saw Lin Feng preparing to approach. Lin Feng had no choice but to stop. "Ms. Carol, I want to know how you learned about the existence of the Skrulls. And how did you know they were invading Blue Star due to their religious beliefs? Among the people of Blue Star, neither Stark nor Senna who are with me have ever discovered Skrulls. Our technology is not yet at that level. In that case, can I assume that there are aliens around you and that you have close contact with them? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 50, Just Pretend and Leave. Chapter 50, Show Off and Leave, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 50, Show Off and Leave. The cries of gratitude grew louder and louder. Chen Haitian was also overwhelmed with excitement. He saw that all the soldiers who had just died had been resurrected. Incomprehensible, absolutely incomprehensible. Such a thing could be done. What was it like in ancient times? At this moment, Chen Haitian was extremely curious, wanting to know what the ancient times were like. Why was Sun Wukong so powerful? Why could the Buddha even do such a thing? Thor stared at his surroundings in amazement. People knelt on the ground, thanking the shadowy figures of Sun Wukong and the Buddha. He had just witnessed with his own eyes that after being sprinkled with golden light, the wounds of the dead people were visibly healed, and they stood up. Some even had their arms broken, but they grew back, and they were resurrected. Incredible. Thor couldn't help but shake his head in amazement. Hong Kong Temple. Ancient One's face was filled with shock, unable to believe such a thing. But the resurrected people in the city were indirectly telling him that all this was real. It took him a long while to come to his senses and accept this. They can even do this. It seems I underestimated the power they possess. What kind of power is this? Ancient One became increasingly curious about the power wielded by Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha. At the same time, a word came to his mind. Tao. What is this Tao? Ancient One muttered to himself. This was a word he had inexplicably grasped when he saw Lin Feng's clone. Tony woke up. After taking in his surroundings, he sat up abruptly. Where am I? He wondered. Suddenly, he remembered his situation. His heart tightened, and he quickly glanced out the window. But there was no alien in sight. Instead, the sun was shining, and the air seemed peaceful. Tony was puzzled. What was going on? Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he glanced at his arm. He was immediately startled. The palladium in his arm's veins had vanished. How could this happen? The symptoms of palladium poisoning have disappeared, Tony exclaimed in disbelief. He knew his physical condition at the time well. Severe palladium poisoning had damaged his internal organs, and his blood vessels had turned black. He knew there was no way he could be saved. But now his blood vessels were back to normal. And he felt no discomfort at all. This can't be Chinese medical treatment. There's no such advanced medical treatment. So, what happened while I was unconscious? Tony, a genius, quickly figured out the problem. But he couldn't understand the situation. How could he be fine? This was too unbelievable. Loki watched the scene in disbelief. The dead earthlings around him had all been resurrected. It was beyond his comprehension. And it also made him even more certain that Scholar Lin Feng's information was wrong. Suddenly, he saw something, his eyes lit up, and he rushed over to pick it up. It was the Tesseract. Great! That's exactly what I was looking for, Loki exclaimed excitedly. Lin Feng had previously smashed the space tunnel device, sending fragments and other debris flying in all directions along with the blue airwaves. This included the cosmic cube. He hadn't expected Loki to pick it up. Loki no longer had any intention of attacking. He was now restless and wanted only to escape. If Sun Wukong discovered him, he would be doomed. Without hesitation, he quickly harnessed the power of the cosmic cube and vanished from the scene. Cheers of gratitude grew in the city. Lin Feng smiled broadly. Then, he noticed Loki had escaped using the cosmic cube. I didn't expect this kid would pick it up, Lin Feng pondered for a moment. Then, he stopped thinking about it. After all, Loki would be involved in some of the upcoming events, and since he had tricked him into a complete mess, keeping him around might be more interesting. Then, a system notification chimed in. Ling. Congratulations, Master, for completing the hero mission. Shock points reward being calculated. Calculation completed. Congratulations, Master, for receiving 100,000 shock points. 100,000 shock points. Lin Feng was startled. He actually got so much from this hero mission? Last time, I think he only got 5,000 shock points, right? But on second thought, it made sense. This time, the crisis was far greater than last time, and the scene was even more spectacular. There were also the characters of Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda, and Tathagata Buda even performed a stunning act of resurrection. So, it was normal to get so much shock points. If there weren't so many, maybe the system had withheld them. Lin Feng's thoughts wandered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. With so much shock points, I should buy Erlang Shen's character card, right? When Lin Feng was writing the Sun Wukong story, he had already decided that Erlang Shen would be the next character to play. After all, if he was bringing Chinese mythology back to Earth, it was natural to play other mythological characters as well. At this moment, the system voice sounded again. Ling. Congratulations, Master, for completing the first stage of the mission. The system has been successfully upgraded and entered the second stage. Open points to redeem all functions of the mall. System upgraded. Lin Feng was delighted, but he didn't rush to check it out now. He decided to study it after returning. After all, it was all over, and it would be a bit awkward if Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda were still here. With this thought in mind, Lin Feng controlled the phantom of the Tathagata Buda and said, Amitabha. This matter is concluded, and it is time for me to depart. I have slept for ages, and this awakening is only a brief one. I will slumber again for a while. However, the passage of time, over the endless years, those of my generation have already passed their days. Others will awaken next. You humans carry the blood of our ancient ancestors. You must be pious and peaceful, and avoid disputes. Perhaps, in the future, we will regain our former glory. Amitabha, the Tathagata Buddha's phantom chanted a Buddhist name, and the huge shadow suddenly dispersed, transforming into countless stars of golden light, dissipating into the air. The scene was magnificent and beautiful. But the people in the city were stunned when they heard these words. What do you mean? Is Tathagata Buddha going to fall asleep again? No way. What should we do if our Earth is in danger again? Fuck, how can there be so many dangers? Do you think things like today happen every day? That's right. Besides, didn't Tathagata Buddha say that other characters will wake up? Fuck. I suddenly thought of one thing. Tathagata Buddha said that other characters will wake up. Do you remember that someone said this before? Who? Lin Feng. Professor Lin, hiss. I remember, it seems that this really happened. Yes. How did he know? 213. Chapter 212 Seeds of Doubt. 213. Chapter 212 Seeds of Doubt 2024-11-03 Author, Good Monster Chapter 212 Seeds of Doubt Carol unknowingly fell into Lin Feng's logic. She was a little stubborn, so what? Lin Feng smiled faintly, not much? Although we Chinese have always emphasized that seeing is believing and hearing is not, sometimes your eyes can deceive you. The image you know of the Skrulls secretly invading the Earth may have been provided to you by the aliens you contacted. Do you believe them so much? At this point, Lin Feng paused. Have you ever thought that if the information they provided was false, their purpose was just to make you eliminate the Skrulls? Carol was stunned when she heard this, and doubts arose in her heart. Yes, why did she trust her captain so much? Seeing this, Lin Feng struck while the iron was hot. I believe you have your own judgment. Since you know about the Skrull's existence, you naturally have ways to identify them. You can get up close and see if they truly are as brutal as the invaders. Carol was a little unconvinced. Great kindness may appear false, and great treachery may appear loyal. Who knows if they're just pretending? Lin Feng simply smiled and asked, doesn't this also apply to the aliens you've encountered? Carol was stunned. After a long moment, she left, distraught. Before leaving, she glanced back at Lin Feng, her expression complex and speechless for a long time. Lin Feng simply smiled at her, even waving as he bid her farewell. Carol didn't look back again. She was beginning to believe Lin Feng's words. As a person, one should have their own judgment, not blindly believe what others tell them. Lin Feng slid his hands leisurely in his pockets, whistling briskly as he prepared to leave. He had successfully sowed the seeds of doubt in Carol's heart. With the passage of time and the inconsistent behavior of the Kree, these seeds would quietly take root and gradually shift Carol's stance. The question of whether the Skrulls were invaders remains unresolved, but the space-jumping technology they provided during Thanos' invasion of Blue Planet clearly demonstrates their stance on the planet. However, they have instilled in Carol the notion of the Skrulls as invaders, embellishing their image, a stark contrast to their actual behavior. If Carol ceases to blindly trust the Kree, she will eventually discover flaws. These flaws will only deepen her suspicions and reveal more truths. However, the Skrulls cannot be left alone. It will be necessary to raise this matter with Strange. As Lin Feng pondered the Kree-Skrull conflict, his phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the screen. It was Rogers calling. Despite his doubts, he answered the call. Professor Lin, Bucky is definitely not the murderer. Rogers' voice on the other end of the phone was a little anxious, which was very different from his usual calmness. You once told me that he was in Romania recently, and I have found his whereabouts. Since he was in Romania, how could he go to Vienna to carry out a terrorist attack in a short time? Lin Feng hurriedly comforted him. Rogers, don't worry, I understand you and I believe you. We all know that it was not Bucky who did it, but all the clues currently point to him. If you can find him, persuade him to surrender first, because the video alone cannot convict him, and more evidence is needed. The United Nations may find the real murderer when investigating more evidence. Rogers was grateful and thanked him quickly. Professor Lin, thank you for your trust. I will go find him now. I will definitely persuade him to surrender first and will not let him escape. At the same time, his grievances with Hydra should be resolved. After hearing this, Lin Feng knew that Rogers not only wanted to clear Bucky's suspicion, but also hoped that Bucky could face his crimes as the Winter Soldier and bid farewell to the Hydra organization completely. Touched by Rogers' support for Bucky, he asked, do you need any help? Rogers paused before replying, Professor, if possible, have Sam come and help me. Lin Feng smiled and said, okay, I'll contact Sam right away. Be careful, not only to ensure Bucky's safety, but also your own. After hanging up, Lin Feng contacted Sam and asked him to go find Rogers in Romania, then headed towards the ruins. By then, the wounded and dead had been mostly cleared, the fire under control, and only finishing work remained. Lin Feng understood Rogers' point. He didn't want to overtax the Avengers' manpower. But he also knew Bucky was a serious matter, so he had to seek Sam's help. Due to the influence of the Huaxia cult and the anti-God movement, humanity's trust in the gods had been severely eroded. The Avengers emerged against this backdrop, like a newborn baby facing the adult world, inevitably struggling with manpower. Lin Feng no longer cared too much about the attitude of humans toward the gods on Blue Planet. After the Thanos War, his reputation had expanded beyond the Blue Planet, with fans in Asgard, the Dark Planet, and even as far away as Xandar. Now, he was more concerned with the growth of the Avengers and the progress of humanity. Thinking of Bucky, Lin Feng recalled Stark. Bucky had secretly assassinated Stark's parents as a Hydra weapon. Although he was unaware at the time, that didn't erase the bloodshed on his hands. Lin Feng felt the need to warn Stark and prepare him. Otherwise, if this matter were to be brought to light, it would ignite a conflict between Stark and Rogers, with disastrous consequences. He remembered that this incident was exposed by someone from Sokovia, leading to a heated argument between Stark and Rogers, and their relationship plummeting to a freezing point. But he couldn't recall who this person was. It had been so long, and he didn't pay much attention to minor figures. Therefore, He kept wondering who was trying to undermine the Avengers, and what their motives were. If he remembered correctly, this person was also the perpetrator of the Vienna massacre, disguised as Bucky, trying to frame him. After luring Bucky out, he used the message left by Hydra to hypnotize and control Bucky, triggering a new wave of tragedy. Oh, right, Hydra. Lin Feng thought of this and quickly sent a message to Natasha. Natasha was a master in espionage. He asked her to go to Cleveland to find a former Soviet national living in hiding and drinking heavily, as this individual held crucial information and clues. After contacting Natasha, Lin Feng didn't stop. He knew the next person behind the covert operation would assassinate a psychiatrist and attempt to infiltrate the trial site and hypnotize Bucky. After a moment's hesitation, Lin Feng decided not to use his divine power. He feared that excessive use of his power would gradually lose his humanity. Deep down, he was still Chinese, which was why he considered himself a spokesperson for the gods. He wanted to maintain a clear separation between his humanity and his divinity. With a sigh, Lin Feng decided to go to Stark's laboratory to tell him the truth. Two men in baseball caps walked into the bar, ordered a drink each, and began to talk in low voices at the bar. Sam didn't turn around, just looked around. Rogers, do you think we can bring him back without resorting to violence? Rogers sighed softly and lowered his voice. I'll do my best. Bucky has taken too many innocent lives as the Winter Soldier. I can't let him make any more mistakes. Sam nodded, but still gave Rogers a heads up. You have to be aware that he's a super soldier as powerful as you. If he loses control, the consequences will be disastrous. We don't know what methods Hydra used to control him, but what is certain is that he has the potential risk of losing control. As soon as he finished speaking, another person appeared beside them. It was a woman, and she also ordered a drink. She whispered, since the release of the live video, we've received numerous reports from various sources, but many are unfounded speculations with no real value. She handed over a briefing bag. Apart from this, my superiors urgently need a briefing, so this is all I can give you. Rogers didn't turn, but thanked him nonetheless. Thank you, Sharon. Since the last incident, Rogers had intentionally or unintentionally distanced himself from Sharon. But after the terrorist attack, Sharon discovered Rogers' whereabouts and, hoping to resolve the misunderstanding, sought to find him. She was now a member of the UN Vienna investigation team. After discovering Rogers' whereabouts, she suspected the suspect might be acquaintances of Rogers. She searched the files and found the only suspect who might still be alive. Sharon's heart warmed at Rogers' gratitude, but she didn't forget her business. With a serious expression, she told Rogers, you need to hurry. Our orders are that the target is too dangerous. If he appears, he can be killed immediately. With that, she left. Rogers and Sam exchanged a glance, realizing the seriousness of the situation and immediately opening the file to check. Lin Feng saw Stark. Although he had lost some weight, his mental state was significantly better. It seemed he had been eating properly, exercising regularly, and was living a good life. Seeing Lin Feng coming, Stark stopped lifting weights and wiped the sweat off his face. What's the matter, Professor Lin Feng? Do you have something to talk to me about? We have already made the machine to detect the Kree, and it will take some time to counterattack. Lin Feng smiled. I know, you and Dr. Senna should have a good rest for a few days. You both have lost a lot of weight. Hearing Lin Feng's concern, Stark smiled. Professor Lin, thank you for your concern. But the Kree are like a sword hanging over our heads. We will never have peace until we resolve it. Lin Feng patted him on the shoulder. Let it go for now. Knowing yourself and your enemy will ensure victory in 100 battles. Now that Hashimoto Kanzuki has infiltrated the Kree, with the intelligence she provides, the counterattack can be delayed. Stark heard this. Okay, thank you Professor Lin for your concern. By the way, Professor Lin, what do you want to talk to me about this time? Lin Feng looked up at the ceiling. Stark, do you remember what happened to your parents? Stark's eyes froze. Lin Feng asked about this as soon as he opened his mouth, which made him have an ominous premonition. Lin Feng handed him a file envelope. Don't open it yet. Did you know that Hydra has a method of hypnotizing people, turning them into ruthless killers? Stark shook his head. I don't know about this. Professor, you should have discovered it yourself through the information left behind by Hydra. Professor, was the person who killed my parents a Hydra member? And, was he hypnotized into killing my parents? Lin Feng nodded. Indeed. Now that you are mentally prepared, you can open this file envelope. I hope you will not harbor any grudges against anyone after opening it, and do not hurt others because of prejudice. That's all I have to say. If you need anything, feel free to contact me." With that, Lin Feng left. He knew that Stark needed some time alone. In Bucharest, Bucky was calculating his savings. He had been scrimping and saving, and working 2 jobs recently, and finally saved enough for a plane ticket to China and money to live there for a while. He decided to reward himself. After putting on his baseball cap, Bucky left the house and went to the fruit stall to buy a lot of fruit. While waiting for a bus on the side of the road, Bucky felt thirsty. He spotted what looked like a small shop across the street and hurried over to buy a drink. The shop owner, chewing on a popsicle, casually read a newspaper. He glanced at the news, feeling it was too far removed from his own life, and dropped the paper. But just as he dropped it, he felt the news resonate with him. He watched the man approaching, terrified, and fled the shop. Bucky was amazed at the shop owner's panic. But he also knew that if his identity hadn't been revealed, ordinary people wouldn't be so frightened. He'd been in disguise these days, never taking off his baseball cap, yet he was still recognized? Was it the newspaper's contents that betrayed him? Bucky walked over, picked up the paper, and after just one glance, his face changed drastically. The newspaper not only revealed his identity but also portrayed him as a demon in the eyes of the world. The United Nations is offering a substantial reward for information leading to the Vienna massacre suspect, Hydra assassin James Buchanan Barnes. Recently, while working, he heard the tragic news of the Vienna massacre from a co-worker. The scene was horrific, and countless lives were lost. That was all he knew. Yet, a newspaper report had blatantly identified him as the Vienna massacre's perpetrator. He carefully read the report and learned that the accident occurred in the building where the Sokovia conventions were about to be signed, tragically killing numerous volunteers and advocates. The convention aimed to reconcile the relationship between humans and the gods. Bucky realized the gravity of the situation. If the perpetrator's accusation proved true, he would not only offend the United Nations but also infuriate both supporters and opponents of the gods. One explosion had undone all his efforts. And with the perpetrator attempting to blame him, his situation was clearly precarious. After careful consideration, Bucky quickly returned to his residence. Inside, Rogers had quietly infiltrated. Chapter 51 The aerospace aircraft carrier crashed. Chapter 51 The aerospace carrier has crashed. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 51 The aerospace carrier has crashed. Someone brought this up, sparking curiosity and confusion. It was a bit unbelievable. But then, someone else exclaimed in surprise, "Fuck, that question isn't important. What's important is, didn't you hear Tathagata Buddha say, perhaps in the future we'll regain our former glory? What does that mean? It means we might return to the glory of ancient times. Then we might even be able to learn their skills." I heard it, but since you were discussing Professor Lin, I didn't say anything. Fuck, your interpretation is so clear, is it true? Discussion swirled. People were excited, and began to envision the future. Chen Haitian was also excited. He also understood the meaning of Tathagata Buddha's phantom's words. If only that were true, Chen Haitian said excitedly, hoping that what he was imagining was true. He looked at Sun Wukong again. Now that Tathagata Buddha had left, it was probably his turn to go, right? Chen Haitian was about to watch Lin Feng leave. But suddenly, something occurred to him, and he hesitated. Then, he made up his mind and hurried in the direction of Lin Feng. Lin Feng had just controlled the Tathagata Buddha's phantom to say those words to pave the way for the mythical role he would later play. At this moment, he heard the excited sounds in the city, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Then, he was about to leave. But suddenly, a shout came from below. "Wait! Please wait!" Hearing the shout, Lin Feng paused and looked over. He saw an acquaintance running over. "It's him," Lin Feng thought to himself. He and Chen Haitian had met twice. Once, when they fought the destroyer. Another time, when he had played Tathagata Buddha and went to the Ministry of State Security. He must be a leader of the Ministry of State Security. What does he want? Lin Feng wondered. He didn't understand why the other party called him. Chen Haitian ran to Lin Feng's side, panting, "Mr. Son, please wait a moment, what can I do for you? I'm the director of China's Ministry of State Security." Chen Haitian introduced himself. After catching his breath, he said, I'm planning to create an organization for superhumans. Are you interested in joining? Chen Haitian looked respectful and smiled. But he was nervous. He wondered if his actions were disrespectful. Lin Feng understood what he meant. He was trying to recruit him, Sun Wukong, to join the official organization. But after a moment's thought, he put himself in Sun Wukong's shoes and said, "A superhuman organization? What is that? I don't understand, Lin Feng said, waving his hands. Chen Haitian was stunned for a moment, then, realizing what he meant, explained, "It's about inviting people like you, who possess superhuman powers, to form a department, essentially a government agency." "You mean to become an official?" Yes, that's right," Chen Haitian said with a smile. But Lin Feng immediately shook his head and said, No, I, old son, have a problem with being an official. Let's talk about this later. Goodbye." With that, Lin Feng transformed into a streak of light and flew away at breakneck speed, soon vanishing. Chen Haitian stood there in a daze. He felt strangely rejected. But even though it was a rejection, the other party didn't seem to take his presumptuous invitation as a sign of indifference. This reassured him somewhat. Thor stood there, watching the direction Lin Feng's streaking flight took. He had heard the conversation between Lin Feng and Chen Haitian. He thought for a moment, and made a decision. Guyi stared at Lin Feng's departure in a daze. He seemed lost in thought, already making a plan. Meanwhile, aboard the aerospace carrier, Nick and Captain America watched the screen displayed on their tablet. Sun Wukong had flown away. This alien invasion of Earth through the space tunnel was finally over. But this incident would undoubtedly go down in the annals of history. Recalling the fierce battle they had witnessed both in person and on their tablets, the two were still stunned. The vast alien army that obscured the sky, the terrifying, ferocious-looking giant mechanical worms, the golden shadows, Sun Wukong's clones, and so on, everything was awe-inspiring. Nick, in particular, recalled his earlier plan to take advantage of China's misfortune. He realized that if China wanted support, they would have to offer benefits. However, in a battle like that, they were of no help at all. In fact, if Nick hadn't acted decisively and issued the order to return, they might have been mistaken for aliens and destroyed by Sun Wukong. Thinking of this, Nick felt even more certain that his decision to return was the right one. Woo. Suddenly, a sharp alarm blared. The faces of the two men standing by the railing changed. Nick quickly pulled out his intercom and asked, "What's going on, Chief?" "There's a strange object flying towards our mothership at top speed." "What?" Nick was startled and asked again, "What is it?" "We don't know yet, but at this speed, if they don't stop, they'll hide us in half a minute." Nick was startled again, feeling somewhat bewildered. Captain America, standing next to him, also looked nervous and surprised. But suddenly, a thought struck him, and he took a breath. His expression changed, and he quickly turned to Nick. "Mr. Fury, I think I know what it is." "You?" Nick was puzzled. Captain America said, "Do you remember when Sun Wukong said another monster had escaped, and then he used his power to condense a glowing stick and threw it?" Nick frowned at this, as if recalling something. But the next second, he was startled, and he remembered everything. He hadn't paid much attention at the time, thinking that Sun Wukong was really talking about an alien escaping. But now that he thought about it, the direction Sun Wukong had thrown the missiles seemed to be the same direction his carrier had fled. He'd been too late. Sun Wukong had spotted him. Damn it. With this thought in mind, he quickly shouted into the intercom, "Shoot it down. All air defense systems activated." "Take that thing down." Yes, the other party wasn't sure what was going on, but the director's tone was so urgent, it had to be something bad. Boom 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 boom. Instantly, all the carrier's air defense systems activated, firing shells one after another. Bang boom boom boom, explosions echoed in a sea of white smoke, making it difficult to see what was happening. Nick and Captain America were terrified, unsure if the missiles would work. But suddenly, a golden light burst through the smoke, hurtling towards the carrier. Nick and Captain America's faces dropped, as if struck by lightning. Bang! With a resounding roar, the golden light pierced the carrier from top to bottom. Under the powerful destructive force, the aerospace carrier immediately exploded with a loud bang. Flames blazed, smoke billowed, debris flew, and the power system was paralyzed on the spot. Without power, the aerospace carrier flying in the air immediately fell to the ground below. Chapter 52 Random Mission Released, play the role of Erlang Shen. Chapter 52, Random mission released. Play as Erlang Shen. 2024-08-19 Author. Good Monster Chapter 52. Random mission released. Play as Erlang Shen. Boom boom boom. The aerospace carrier, blazing with flames and billowing black smoke, plummeted towards the ground. The American soldiers screamed in panic, at a loss as to what to do. Some were even blown off the aerospace carrier by inertia and air currents. Damn it, Nick clung to the railing tightly, his face filled with panic. At this moment, Captain America appeared from nowhere, carrying a parachute on his back. "Chief, we have to jump out quickly," Captain America said anxiously, clutching the railing. Nick knew it too. But he couldn't move at all. The moment he let go, he felt like he would be carried out by inertia. "I can't move," Nick replied. Captain America understood his intention. He grabbed Nick by the back of his collar and said, "Captain, let go when I count to 3. "What are you doing?" Captain America didn't explain, but continued counting. 1, 2, 3, he threw with all his might, and when he reached 3, Nick, with a look of shock, let go, and was thrown out by Captain America. Nick screamed in panic. He was thrown over 10 meters by Captain America, and he was secretly shocked. Is this the power of a super soldier? But I still can't even compare to Sun Wukong and the others. Nick thought to himself. In that moment, he realized that Captain America was at most a powerful human, but people like Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda were probably no longer human. Boom boom boom, Captain America looked at Nick, then leaped towards him. He caught him in midair and opened his parachute. With a bang, the parachute opened, and the two of them slowed down their descent. Captain America's parachute was a high-quality military parachute, capable of supporting the weight of 2 strong men. Boom, 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 billowing black smoke and flames, the aerospace carrier plummeted towards the city below. It was New York City. Nick's scalp tingled, his face grim. But he had no power to stop it. The United States didn't have figures like Sun Wukong or Tathagata Buda. "It's over," Nick gritted his teeth. Bang! With a resounding explosion, the aerospace carrier collided with a massive Statue of Liberty, shattering it. Then, abruptly, it exploded, sending flames soaring into the sky, shaking the earth. The resulting debris and shockwaves spread in all directions with devastating force, flattening every building without exception. In a blink of an eye, the entire city of New York was destroyed, leaving the ground in ruins, smoke and flames everywhere. The aerospace carrier was able to fly because of its powerful propulsion system. An explosion like that would be incredibly destructive. Nick and Captain America gritted their teeth, their expressions tense. News of this quickly spread across the globe, shocking the top brass of the United States. An entire New York City was gone. But they couldn't act out of control. Who should they direct their wrath at? China? What did this have to do with China? China was a victim, too, right? Act out their wrath at Sun Wukong? Put him on trial? That would be sheer madness. What if Sun Wukong came to the United States and wreaked havoc? They'd only destroyed one city now, but what if he destroyed more? Who would bear the responsibility? So, they had no choice but to swallow this loss. Furthermore, they'd taken the initiative to declare that aliens had destroyed New York City. Edik. Swish. A fiery red light flashed. Lin Feng appeared. With a thought, Lin Feng released his persona. A brilliant light emanated from him. The light faded, and he returned to his normal self. Lin Feng glanced at the story of Sun Wukong, which he had compiled on his desk. He'd written it recently and was going to use it in his lectures in the coming days. Then, he said with anticipation, "I wonder how many role-playing points I'll get this time." Role-playing points can be used to upgrade a character's role-playing privileges. This is crucial to the strength of the role-playing character. At this moment, a system notification sounded. Ling. This role-playing is being settled. Settlement completed. Congratulations, Master. This role-playing earned a total of 4,889 points. Of these, Sun Wukong earned 4,000 points, and Tathagata Buda earned 889 points. Name, Lin Feng. Character cards, Sun Wukong, Tathagata Buda. Playing points, Sun Wukong 4,078 points, Tathagata Buda 889 points. Note, role-playing points cannot be transferred between characters. Earned role-playing points can only be used for that character. Shock points. 175,382 points. Note, shock points can be used to purchase items in the store. including but not limited to mythical character cards. Lin Feng looked at the virtual panel that popped up. Last time, I upgraded Sun Wukong's role-playing privileges to level 2. I still have 78 role-playing points left. Lin Feng remembered this. He then asked, System, how many points are required to upgrade to the next level of role-playing permissions? Master, the next level requires 2,000 role-playing points, and so on. That means level 4 requires 4,000, and level 5 requires 8,000. Hiss. Lin Feng took a breath. Oh my. That's not going to be easy, but on second thought, he accepted it. It was just a matter of playing more. He had also figured out a pattern: the bigger the scene, the better, the more role-playing points one would gain. For example, the last time he eliminated the Destroyer, his points only increased by a little over 900. But this time, Sun Wukong's points went straight up to 4,000. As for why Tathagata Buddha's points were so few this time, Lin Feng figured it was because Tathagata Buddha only appeared as an image, not a physical form, and he didn't say a single word the entire time. It was impossible to gain many role-playing points in this situation. After figuring it out, Lin Feng said, System, open them all. As soon as he finished speaking, a new virtual panel appeared before him, displaying a large selection of products. Zio Zhuangfen. 250 shock value, Sub-Beauty Patriarch. 100 million shock value, Zhu Beiji. 50,000 shock value, Shamunk. 40,000 shock value. The items were arranged in a rather chaotic order, seemingly not based on strength, shock value, or price. It felt a bit random. But Lin Feng didn't pay much attention. He said, System, search for Erlang Shen Yang Jian's character card. Okay, Master. With that, Yang Jian's character card appeared in the mall. He wielded a 3-pointed, double-edged sword, clad in silver-white armor, and had 3 eyes. Far from looking strange, he was handsome, his gaze deep and resolute. At the same time, a sense of handsomeness and dominance washed over him. What a handsome image, Lin Feng smiled. He then glanced at the shock value displayed below. The shock value required was 150,000. I currently have 170,000 shock value, more than enough to buy this, Lin Feng said with a smile. At this moment, the system voice sounded again. Ling. Master, after the system upgrade, random tasks will be issued. The first random task is now being issued. Random task, play as Erlang Shen, be dug up from the moon, shock the world, and then descend into the world. Complete random tasks turn a large amount of role-playing points. 214. Chapter 213, Escape Quickly. 214. Chapter 213, Escape at High Speed. 2024-11-03 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 213, Escape at High Speed. He looked around. The furniture was very different from what he remembered, but it coincided with Bucky's simple style. Rogers, be careful. German special forces are approaching from the south. Sam's warning came from the headset. Rogers' eyes were attracted by a book with a red star on the cover. He knew that it was the symbol of the former Soviet Union and was closely related to Bucky's past. He was about to open it when he noticed movement behind him. As a super soldier, he had keen perception and turned around quickly to find that the person coming was his long-sought-after friend Bucky. When Bucky saw Rogers, he knew that his residence had been exposed. He knew Rogers, this upright and unconventional soldier, had the limitations of a soldier and was not as cunning as a politician. Since Rogers could find him, the army was probably coming soon. He secretly prepared for battle. Rogers sensed Bucky's wariness and tried to soothe him, urging him to surrender. But knowing Bucky's personality, he could only proceed gradually. Do you remember me? He nervously observed Bucky's reaction. I know you. You're Rogers. I saw you at the museum. Bucky wanted to break with the past and not implicate Rogers. Rogers breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, noticing Bucky's nervousness, he soothed him. You look nervous, and you have reason to be. But he sensed Bucky's emotional turmoil. Someone who only knew him from the museum wouldn't react so strongly. But you're lying. Bucky was speechless, unsure how to respond, so he changed the subject. I didn't go to Vienna. I don't do that anymore. It wasn't me. Sam's voice boomed through Rogers' earpiece. They've already entered the building. Rogers instinctively glanced over his shoulder, his tone anxious. But the people who think you're the murderer are coming to arrest you soon. They don't intend to leave you alive. Bucky, sensing Rogers' strangeness, deduced that he was surrounded. He untied his gloves, revealing his metal arms. Honestly, this was the smartest move. They're on the roof. I have to retreat, Sam said, leaving no contact. Rogers knew that if Bucky didn't resist, he might still have a chance. But if he resisted and caused more casualties, he would surely die. He looked at Bucky, who had revealed his robotic arm. We don't necessarily have to resort to violence, Bucky sneered, but violence is often the most direct and effective solution to problems. Sam's voice came from the headset. They're almost at the door. They'll probably attack in 5 seconds. Rogers raised his voice. Why did you save me in the first place? 3 seconds left. Bucky was stunned. I don't know. Rogers' tone softened. You know, look out, Rogers. They're coming in. Sam's voice became anxious. Rogers turned his head sharply, and Bucky followed suit. Outside, several smoke bombs burst through the window, accompanied by the roar of stun grenades. Bucky, quick-witted, kicked the stun grenades towards Rogers, who, in tacit understanding, pulled out a frying pan to cover them. A voice shouted in German from outside the door, blow the door open. Bucky immediately lifted a table and pinned it to the door. At the same time, a special police officer on a rope broke through the window and quickly surveyed the room, identifying a target. Before he could even steady himself, however, he felt a lurch beneath his feet. Bullets fired, but all of them hit the ceiling. Rogers, with a fleeting urge, had slid the carpet, deflecting the SWAT's attack. Someone else tried to break in from the rooftop door. Bucky kicked them away, and just as he was about to pursue, Rogers grabbed him. Knowing Hydra's brutality, he quickly warned Bucky, Bucky, stop. You're going to hurt someone. Bucky tackled Rogers to the ground. I won't hurt anyone anymore. Then he struck down with a powerful fist. Rogers covered his face, only to hear the sound of a fist smashing. He turned to see Bucky tossing a bag out a window. He stared at Bucky, unsure what to say. Still, SWAT officers leaped from the windowsill without hesitation. They were the nation's protectors, and in times of crisis, it was their duty to lead the charge. They knew full well that the wanted man was a super soldier, capable of inflicting heavy casualties even unarmed, yet they braved the enemy regardless, charging forward without hesitation. Lin Feng pulled Rogers to his feet, using his cauldron to deflect a barrage of shotgun blasts. Then, with a powerful shove, he flung him toward 2 unsuspecting German SWAT officers. He used his robotic arm to deflect another officer's bullets, closing in and knocking him unconscious with a powerful punch. On the windowsill, the 2 SWAT officers quickly rose, repositioned, and prepared for another attack. Although their original target was the Winter Soldier alone, the man's presence and assistance made him a threat as well. They were determined to subdue him. However, despite their prowess, how could they stand up against the super soldier Rogers? Rogers leaped to his feet with a somersault, and seeing the 2 officers unsteady, he lunged forward, grabbing their rifle barrels and forcing them into close combat. Without their weapon advantage, the 2 German SWAT officers were no match for Rogers and were quickly knocked unconscious. Rogers had barely breathed a sigh of relief when he heard a dull thud. The clash between the 2 men took place in a split second. In just over 10 seconds, Rogers and Lin Feng had collectively dispatched several German SWAT officers. The commander outside, realizing his small battering ram couldn't break down Lin Feng's door, fired 3 shots at the edge, attempting to force his way in. Seeing the 3 bullet holes, Lin Feng understood his opponent's intentions and decided to strike first. He used his mechanical arm to penetrate the wall and punched the unsuspecting commander, leaving him dizzy and collapsing. Lin Feng rushed out with a door, smashing it into several German SWAT officers who had approached, instantly incapacitating them. He quickly withdrew his fist, turned, and rushed to the bottom of the stairs, charging into the well-trained German SWAT team like a tiger descending a mountain. The collapsed commander, still dazed and exhausted, mustered his energy and pulled out his intercom. Calling headquarters, the suspect has broken out of the encirclement and escaped from his home. Please send reinforcements immediately. Please. Before he could finish his words, Rogers, who had rushed in behind, snatched the intercom and smashed it with force. Rogers glanced at the fallen commander, relieved to see he was unharmed and the SWAT officers on the ground had only minor injuries, and hurried after Lin Feng. Lin Feng seized the opportunity to run to a window, took a running start, and leaped out. He leaped onto the rooftop of the opposite building, picked up the bag he had thrown, and ran madly. However, after only 2 steps, he noticed a dark figure overhead. Sensing something was amiss, he ducked his head to avoid danger. A figure in Black Panther armor appeared before him. Lin Feng fled hastily, but seeing someone trying to stop him, he rushed forward without hesitation. Focused on escape and raging, Lin Feng was unable to defeat the Black Panther as easily as he had hoped. Black Panther's attacks were deadly, leaving Lin Feng in a state of disarray. Lin Feng had no desire to engage, realizing his attacker was too strong, so he quickly changed direction and continued to flee. Black Panther pursued him relentlessly. Rogers, having leaped from the upper floor to the rooftop, watched Black Panther pursue Lin Feng, puzzled. As he ran, he asked, "Sam, who is this man?" Sam's voice was filled with confusion. "I don't know. I've never seen this face before, and it's not even in the Avengers archives." The three men crisscrossed the city, chasing each other on the highways. As they did so, helicopter gunships continuously strafed the exposed Lin Feng. To avoid being hit, Lin Feng found the perfect moment to dive into the underpass. The two men behind him followed, also jumping down the underpass. Traffic raced by on the highway, but the three men's speed rivaled that of the speeding cars. Their agility, unlike the bulk of the cars, allowed them to weave in and out of traffic with ease. Soon, the sirens of German police could be heard on the highway, shouting at the fleeing Lin Feng, "Drop your weapons, raise your hands in surrender, and give up resistance." Roger swung his pen to smash the police car's window, forcing it to stop. He then pulled the officers out and continued his pursuit of Lin Feng. The long run had left him somewhat exhausted. Lin Feng ignored pleas to surrender and, seeing an oncoming motorcycle, grabbed it and fled. The long run had also drained him of his energy. Black Panther seized the opportunity, leaping onto the roof of the police car and pursuing him. Roger slammed on the brakes to try to shake Black Panther off, but Black Panther took advantage of the momentum and flew forward, clawing at the motorcycle's tire. Lin Feng was flung off the motorcycle. Protected by his armor, Black Panther rushed forward, ready to end Lin Feng's life. Following closely behind, Rogers threw Black Panther with a tackle, knocking him off. He then lifted Lin Feng and confronted Black Panther. Numerous police cars had stopped nearby, and Sam, who had rushed to their aid, was also apprehended by the police. Rhodes, who was on a peacekeeping mission nearby, descended from the sky. Seeing Rogers standing there, he said regretfully, "Rogers, you're under arrest." As the situation became clearer, a large number of police swarmed in, surrounding the area. Facing the heavily armed and on high alert German police, Black Panther slowly removed his helmet. "It's you, Your Majesty," Rhodes blurted out in surprise, recognizing Black Panther. Roger's heart trembled. Staring at the dark face, recalling his armor, impervious even to machine gun bullets, and his unwavering hatred for Bucky, Rogers had a vague idea of his identity. Bucky, a suspect in the Vienna massacre and a notorious Hydra assassin, was imprisoned in a special cage and then loaded onto a prison van. Rogers, Sam, and T'Challa, having been present at the scene of the manhunt, were also considered indirect suspects and were taken along. In the prison van, Black Panther's face remained calm, but his eyes betrayed resentment. He knew very well that if Rogers had not appeared in time, the blow he just made would have been fatal. At the Avengers headquarters, perhaps because daily life was too dull, Vision actually appeared in the kitchen, intending to cook himself. However, when he saw the word "a little" on the menu, he was confused. A little pepper, a little salt, how much is this little? His brain was a computer program, and he was at ease with clear instructions, but he was helpless with vague words like "a little." "What's wrong? Are you hungry?" Ultron's voice suddenly sounded behind him. "Ah, it's you." Vision didn't turn around, but he knew it was Ultron as soon as he heard the voice. He smiled bitterly. "Ultron, can you tell me how to make this dish?" As he said, he handed the menu to Ultron. Ultron took the menu, glanced at it, and shook his head helplessly. "Oh my god, why are you showing me this? You're a better learner than me, and even you don't know what a little is." "How could I possibly know?" Vision could only smile awkwardly. "I thought you'd know something after spending so much time among humans." Ultron looked at him and smiled back, then patiently explained, "Vision, this is different, and impossible. I'm still a machine, a computer program, an AI with a limit to its evolution. Just like your smile, yours comes from the heart, a genuine expression, while mine is just a mimic reaction based on data." Vision nodded, half understanding. Ultron knew Vision needed time to digest this information and was in no rush. He was like a newborn baby, constantly learning and improving. "What's wrong?" "What are you two talking about?" a voice suddenly called out from the kitchen door. They turned to see Wanda appear at the door, holding an apple. Although Lin Feng had taken most of the Avengers to Vienna for support, some remained behind, and Wanda was one of them. Her powerful fighting ability made Lin Feng feel more assured about the safety of the Avengers. In addition, the pendant on her chest allowed her to control her mental power and transform it into different uses. She felt a little hungry, so she took an apple and went to the kitchen. Seeing the two people talking, Wanda immediately joined in. Ultron looked at Wanda and laughed in a mimicry. "Miss Wanda, you came at the right time. Vision wants to cook a dish, but he doesn't understand the meaning of a little, and I can't give him an answer. Perhaps you can give us a clear explanation." After listening, Wanda finished the apple in 2 or 3 bites, threw the core into the trash can, walked over to them, picked up the menu and looked at the ingredients. Then, while she was cooking, she explained to the two of them, when humans cook, they will choose different methods according to their own tastes. For example, a pinch of salt is because people have different tastes. For example, I prefer a lighter taste, so I will put less pepper and salt. A spoonful of pepper and less than half a spoonful of salt is enough. Vision watched her operation and gradually understood. In other words, when people cook, the seasonings they put in are actually based on their own feelings. Right, Wanda smiled happily. "You understand it quickly, Mr. Vision. You are right, a pinch means to let people cook according to their own taste and feelings." Soon, the dish was ready. Wanda stirred the dish to evenly distribute the seasoning, then brought it to the table and looked at the two of them with interest. "Are you interested in trying my cooking?" Chapter 53, hotly discussed online, calling out to Lin Feng. Chapter 53, hot online discussion, shouting out to Lin Feng, 2024-08-19 author, Good Monster. Chapter 53, hot online discussion, shouting out to Lin Feng. Completing random tasks can earn you a large amount of role-playing points. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Would that mean I could upgrade my role-playing privileges even faster? Lin Feng became excited. Immediately, he began to think about how to get people to dig Yang Jian out of the moon. This won't be an easy task. First, I have to let people know that the moon is not a simple place, Lin Feng pondered. Meanwhile, the internet was abuzz with news of Xiangjiang City being invaded by aliens. Although the situation was horrific, akin to hell on earth, some people still risked their lives to secretly film the scene. Once these videos were released, they quickly became a sensation across the internet. No other news outlet could compare. Penguin News, Fox News, China Daily, Today's Headlines, Weibo, and other major news platforms were all covering the incident. Short video platforms like Douyin and Kuaishou also have numerous live streams of the incident. You don't even need to search, just open any short video app or news app and you'll find a news feed about this incident. Because this is such a hot topic right now, anything related to this incident will garner tons of clicks and attention. Countless netizens from other parts of the world were surprised and shocked after seeing the video, unable to believe it was real. They had no idea about the battle before it happened, only finding out about it online through news like this. An alien army invaded Earth, and a phantom named Tathagata Buda appeared and single-handedly delayed the invasion. He then summoned Sun Wukong for help, and Sun Wukong then battled the alien army, using his clone technique to crush them. Finally, the phantom Tathagata Buda intervened and revived all the citizens of Xiangjiang City who had been killed by the alien army. While shocking at first, it wasn't that hard to accept. The final resurrection was truly incredible. What the hell? What happened to this world? Is this still the world I have lived in for more than 20 years? Incredible. Too incredible. Don't believe in rumors. Don't spread rumors. This thing must be false. Rumors stop at the wise. Another wise man has come out. Everyone laugh at him. Ha ha ha. What kind of idiot is this? Isn't he asking for trouble? It's this time, and he still says such things. That's right. If you don't believe it, go to Xiangjiang City and see for yourself. I am from Xiangjiang City. My home is gone and turned into ruins. Hiss. Then this thing is true. Fuck, I care more about the last words of Tathagata Buddha. Maybe in the future it will be glorious again. Doesn't this mean that the magnificent scenes of ancient times will reappear? If the characters of ancient times wake up one after another, then this kind of thing is really possible. Fuck, I remember that at the lecture held by Professor Feng Min of Wukong University, a man named Lin Feng also said this. What Lin Feng? You should call him Professor Lin. He has been hired by Wukong University now. What? Professor Lin said, in the future, figures from ancient times will awaken one after another, but he didn't say, perhaps in the future, they will regain their former glory. Exactly, Professor Lin, please come out. What do you think of this? I heard Professor Lin is currently compiling the story of Sun Wukong and will give a lecture to detail his story, ? Is that true? Fuck, this is too good to be true. When is it? I have to be there this time. I was stuck on the highway last time. Damn it, what about the Tathagata Buddha? Fuck, isn't anyone paying attention to what's happening in New York City? It's been destroyed by aliens too. The internet was abuzz with discussion. All sorts of opinions were circulating. However, many people were excited when they learned that Lin Feng was going to give a lecture detailing Sun Wukong, saying they had to be there. Many also called for Lin Feng to come out and share his thoughts on this statement. United States. Tony Stark stared at the projected video in shock. The scene showed the Tathagata Buddha resurrecting all the dead, including wounds healed and broken arms and legs regrown. Tony gasped, his heart awash with shock. He finally understood why he had, despite severe palladium poisoning and hanging by a thread, woke up as if nothing had happened. It was the Tathagata Buddha's methods that saved him. Such a method is simply unbelievable and incomprehensible, Tony pondered. He weighed the situation. After a few seconds, he made a decision. Professor Feng, why are you here? Please take a seat, Lin Feng said hurriedly upon seeing Feng Min approaching, then stood up to make tea. Feng Min sat down and smiled at Lin Feng's back. Professor Lin, don't bother. I'll just sit for a while and leave, haha. Lin Feng smiled, continuing to make tea. Feng Min hadn't mentioned the Ministry of State Security's investigation of Lin Feng. To him, it was a minor matter, as long as Professor Lin Feng didn't endanger the safety of the country and the people, it was fine. Lin Feng brewed some tea and brought it over. Feng Min took the teacup, set it aside, and asked with a smile, Professor Lin, how is the story of Sun Wukong coming along? The story of Xiangjiang City being invaded by aliens and then resolved by the shadowy image of Sun Wukong, the Tathagata Buddha, has garnered enormous attention and excitement. The students at school are spreading the word, and they've also heard you're giving a lecture detailing Sun Wukong's story, and they're eagerly anticipating it. After all, Sun Wukong has done such a big thing this time, it's ready. The lecture will be held in a couple of days, Lin Feng said. That's great, Feng Min said. After the events in Xiangjiang City, he was even more curious about Sun Wukong's story. Moreover, Sun Wukong held a special place in his heart. He was the first to speak out about Sun Wukong's connection to Chinese history, a figure who had vanished from the pages of Chinese history. Feng Min smiled and added, Professor Lin, actually, I have a humble request. Hearing this, Lin Feng, looking at this history-obsessed old man, felt a sense of confusion. In his mind, Professor Feng was the kind of person who wouldn't hide personal matters about work, so why would he bring this up now? However, Lin Feng didn't care. He smiled and asked, Professor Feng, feel free to talk, okay? Professor Feng nodded repeatedly. After Professor Lin finishes his lecture, could you please give your notes to the school so the students can see them? Why? I just wrote them casually, it's just a manuscript. This is a detailed story about a monkey king. It's the first known record of him in the world. So it's priceless and will be passed down through the ages. I just want to preserve it. Lin Feng was a little surprised. He hadn't expected something he'd casually written to reach such a high level. But then he thought about the current situation and understood. So, he agreed. Chapter 54 Loki comes to visit Lin Feng again. Chapter 54 Loki comes to visit Lin Feng again. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 54 Loki comes to visit Lin Feng again. Professor Feng was as excited as a 60-year-old child. He drank up the tea that Lin Feng had brewed and left happily. Lin Feng shook his head and smiled. Meanwhile, on Chen Haitian's side, you two said you wanted to join the extraordinary organization of the Chinese Ministry of National Security. Chen Haitian frowned, looking at the two people sitting opposite him with a puzzled look. Yet, the two said at the same time, their eyes firm. They were Tony and Thor. Chen Haitian thought for a moment, then looked at Thor and said, Aren't you a prince of Asgard? Why don't you return to Asgard and want to join our organization of superhumans? He then looked at Tony Stark and said, And you, an American, a prominent figure in the US, the owner of Stark Industries, what are you after? Chen Haitian didn't understand what the two men were planning. Because we want to meet people like Sun Wukong and understand the power they wield, they said in unison. They had overheard Chen Haitian's conversation with Sun Wukong and knew that Chen Haitian wanted to form a superhuman organization, so after careful consideration, they decided to join. Chen Haitian understood what they were saying and sympathized with their thinking. The power wielded by Sun Wukong and his group was truly mysterious and powerful, and it was natural to yearn for it. Moreover, not only did they yearn for it, but he himself also yearned for it. Chen Haitian added, but Sun Wukong seems to have rejected my invitation, and judging by his expression, he seems to have some resistance to being an official. As Chen Haitian spoke, he recalled the situation. He was curious about the situation, wondering why Sun Wukong had acted this way. So, I'm not sure if people like them will ultimately agree to join this organization of transcendence. You two should think carefully about this, Chen Haitian added. His meaning was clear, there was a chance your attempts to connect might be thwarted. If you wanted to join, you should be mentally prepared. Well, we understand, Thor and Tony said. They had also heard that Sun Wukong seemed reluctant, so they were aware of the situation. On the other hand, if they didn't join the Huaxia organization, they would have no chance of meeting someone like Sun Wukong. Joining the organization at least offered a chance. Okay, seeing their resolute stance, Chen Haitian understood their intentions. Without further ado, he agreed. Besides, it was a good thing. Thor was a prince of Asgard and possessed the power of thunder. Tony owns Stark Industries and controls the manufacturing process for the Iron Man suit. These two are perfect for this organization of superhumans. This time, they're definitely benefiting from Sun Wukong and the others. Otherwise, they wouldn't even want to join this organization. But I still hope Sun Wukong will eventually join, Chen Haitian thought to himself. Meanwhile, at Lin Feng's place, Loki came knocking again. Scholar Lin. Scholar Lin, Loki called from outside. He was dressed in a casual suit, a stark contrast to his previous attire in Xiangjiang City. Lin Feng came out. Seeing Loki, he frowned slightly and said, "You again?" Loki, looking panicked, said, "Scholar Lin, your information is wrong." Loki had been having a rough time these past few days. He didn't dare stay on Earth, fearing Sun Wukong's capture and retaliation. So, he used the power of the Tesseract to escape to another planet and hide for a few days. Only today did he use the Tesseract to return to Earth to find Lin Feng. Lin Feng was lost in thought. He had originally thought Loki was looking for trouble. After all, he'd fooled him back then. But judging by his reaction and attitude, it didn't seem like he was seeking revenge, but simply seeking to tell him the information was wrong. Lin Feng thought for a moment. If that was the case, he'd just keep teasing him. Lin Feng pretended not to know what Loki was talking about and asked, "Information? What information?" On Sun Wukong, Loki said, "Didn't you say before that Sun Wukong wasn't actually very strong, that he was okay fighting alone but would be defeated if besieged? But he stood firm against the alien army and was incredibly strong." Upon hearing this, Lin Feng instantly knew how to respond. "So that's what happened," he said. "My previous research was wrong, and I only discovered it later. Sun Wukong is actually quite formidable even when besieged. I was planning to contact you to explain this, but I don't seem to have your contact information." Upon hearing this, Loki thought to himself, exactly as I suspected. Loki had previously suspected Lin Feng of deliberately deceiving him. But then he thought, that's impossible. Lin Feng didn't know his own identity, so there was no reason for him to lie to himself. So, he later thought that Lin Feng must have made a wrong conclusion because of his research results. However, he was not angry because mistakes were inevitable in academic research. It was just that he was a little unwilling to accept it. A good plan was ruined by Sun Wukong again. Lin Feng said again, "But, isn't it a good thing that Sun Wukong is so powerful? It prevented the Earth from being invaded by aliens, and killed the alien invaders without leaving a single piece of armor." Loki was stunned by this question and was stunned on the spot. He couldn't say that he was the invading alien, right? So, he could only force a smile and said, "Yes, this is indeed a good thing." Seeing Loki's fake smile and admitting that he was killed without leaving a single piece of armor, Lin Feng couldn't stop laughing in his heart. He added, "However, Sun Wukong's strength has its limits. He's not invincible." Loki's heart skipped a beat when he heard this, and he quickly asked, "Professor Lin, what do you mean?" "I don't know the specifics yet. But my research has revealed that Sun Wukong was later defeated and imprisoned." Loki's eyes lit up when he heard this. He had previously thought Sun Wukong was incredibly powerful, and his plans to defeat him and take over Earth seemed hopeless. But after hearing Lin Feng's words, he suddenly felt confident again. "Professor Lin, are you sure this time? Are your research results correct?" Loki asked, hoping to prevent a recurrence. "Yes, I'm sure this time," Lin Feng said, "but I haven't figured out how he was imprisoned." "Okay, I get it," Loki said excitedly. It didn't matter how he was imprisoned, as long as he could be imprisoned. This proved that he wasn't invincible. "Hey, why do you seem so excited to hear that Sun Wukong is not invincible?" "Really?" Loki was startled, but quickly reacted and said, "Haha, maybe it's because I was chatting with Professor Lin and got the information about Sun Wukong first. So I'm excited." "Oh, so that's how it is." Lin Feng nodded deliberately. Loki smiled again and thought to himself, what a close call, worthy of being a great scholar. His observation is so sharp that I almost discovered the clues. But suddenly, he thought of something else and said, "You speculated before that other characters would awaken next. The shadow of Tathagata Buddha also said so, which confirms what you said before. Do you know who will be the next character to awaken?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.